revolutionary yourself, Darius Lockhart, and I'm here to tell you to watch Powerbombshells every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel. That's right, every Sunday at 1 p.m., and that's on time, every time, because when we stand together, what time is it? That's right, it's nation time.
Welcome to Powerbombshells. I am Mel. And that is not Sam. You guys. And as you all know, Sam is still recovering. And our great news, real quick here, is that she is cancer-free 100%. So she confirmed that online. And so joining me this week is co-host of Speaking of Strong Style and the super duper awesomest editor and fun guy, Jeremy Finestone, is joining me. Seriously, you guys have no idea how much this guy does for this network.
You're giving away the secret.
You're
breaking the wall. I appreciate you.
This is what we do. This is what we do here.
Such a vibe with Darius Lockhart opening the show, right? Like, just
I love that
energy that like you started out. And it's like, yeah, all right, let's get into this. Let's break it down. I am here for it. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I told you privately that if you needed anything with what was going on with Sam, that I was happy to show up and do whatever that you needed of me. No questions asked. Here we are, and I'm ready to get going with you. Doesn't sound like it's going to be a super fun time, all conversation, but I'm ready to sit down and actually talk the nuance and the important details about stuff that A, is not, great to talk about, but B, because we love pro wrestling so much, we owe it to ourselves to be honest about the side of it that we don't want to look at.
I think that's like the perfect way of putting it too. And as most of the people that watch us regularly or watch back, they know that we've been following all of this. We've been following the Janel Grant suit very, very closely. And some of you might have seen BJ Phillip was supposed to join you, but he had some in real life stuff, and that's okay because we don't need to get into the weeds. We just need to talk about some sort of things that are just common things that I think we all know. And like you said, it's because we care about it that we have to hold it accountable for these things. And it's interesting because we're going on a year where Janel Grant's grand jury has been seated. And just to kind of catch some people up, we did not talk about the Ring Boy scandal last week, obviously, because it was the Halloween live stream and we weren't going to be jerks about it. And so for those of you who missed that, that's the reason that we're a week late in getting our takes in. But also, reading the lawsuit and dealing with that, and that's no fun either. But so a new lawsuit, we're almost a year on, where Janel Grant's filing has been made and her grand jury was seated. That case is stayed right now by the Department of Justice on the request of the Department of Justice. And that is, as everyone knows, all about manipulation and trafficking and just icky stuff altogether. And then this new filing, which is a new Ring Boy scandal. It is not scandal, but a new Ring Boy filing in the Baltimore County District Court area there. And it is a lot of John Does. No one is actually named in the suit, but they are essentially calling out what we've known for years about the Mel Phillips situation, which is that Mel Phillips was grooming, abusing, and essentially, not essentially, he was actually
predatory action.
And especially since we just talked about when Professor Carr was on here, she talked about the fact that that's exactly like it's right in her definition of trafficking. He was bringing these kids from ring to ring to do child labor.
Yes.
These boys were as young as 11. 11 to 13 is the general range. And
manipulated, lied to, and abused, and then gaslit about their experience to downplay it, and then essentially bribed to make it go away because of the access to stars and the environment that they were in. It's like your kids in a town that you've never seen a star before in your life, and all of a sudden you're exposed to all of these things. I mean, Mel, it would have been our age. This is the age that we would have been, 8 to 15. All these things. It's just finding the children that fell between the cracks. It's like it was a business that was built upon secrecy and keeping things from like going too far. And when it's done for the sake of entertaining fans, you can look the other way. But when it becomes a complicity act in which real crimes and real victimizations of trigger warning, wait for a second, sexual assault, rape, all of these things that have happened to at least the 5 that have come forward in the suit so far, you really just like you either shut down and you immediately just be like, doesn't have anything to do with the WWE that I watched today, and you just move on. You compartmentalize and it doesn't matter. Or you sit there and you really have to think about the impact of not what it has on you, but the impact that it had on children that you may like have to relate to in your real life, like children that you may have, or children that you care about in your life in some way, shape, or form.
Oh my gosh, my niece is this age. I would lose my mind.
Right. Like, I have godchildren, I have nieces, I have nephews. Like, you would do anything to protect them. And even if, like, the most innocuous of circumstances, you can't know everything. You can't be aware of everything that is going on in your child's life as much as that you want to be. And you only notice the signs after something has happened. Like, you can't notice the signs before something's happened when they're in that kind of danger and that caution. And I kind of told you privately before going into it, like, I was a big fan of the podcast You're Wrong About with Michael Hobbs, which would take stories that in the 70s, 80s, 60s, 90s that society would sensationalize and take to, but reveal the truths about it, like the Satanic Panic. And
yes, I have. Yep.
Yeah, and it's a great podcast. And one of the things that they talked about at one point was the concept of stranger danger that was perpetuated in the 80s. And they never really could pinpoint like a causal moment of this, but it just became the example of predatory action that you should look for and all these things. And like you would watch like Punky Brewster and Different Strokes and all these shows, and they would have these kind of scenarios in these shows. But if you really look and thought about it, you couldn't think about a real life scenario that was like popularized that actually happened. But this is what that is. Like the Mel Phillips case is literally stranger danger. Guy comes by in a van. Hey, you want a job working with the WWE? And then from there, like you're going further. You're just, everything happens for that. And it's really gross to think about how far and how many people had to let this go on and look the other way when they're like, something's not right here.
And that is what I think the largest sort of the macro look at the entire situation when you think about this lawsuit is they're alleging that, and this is the big one, Vince McMahon, but also Linda McMahon knew this was going on, allowed this to go on. This was a company-wide joke. This was and I mean, this, I compared this earlier when I was talking to my husband about it to like, this is Jerry Sandusky, where everybody knew that this guy was, this is Larry Nassar. This was like, don't be alone with that guy. Don't like, everybody knew about Mel's kids and that, Pat Patterson was doing this. But the biggest,
there was a veil of secrecy around the company in which no one could get any truth about it. and they got the kids to shut up by buying them cars
Yep.
and other gifts. Every trick that was ever used in order to perpetuate the secrecy around the business to keep kayfabe,
Yep.
was used to perpetuate horrific crimes. There's no other way to put it.
Nope. And it
was weaponized.
Yeah, big time. And what's interesting about this case is that they are only allowed to like and I read Dave's article too, so they're I guess only allowed to use the kids that are the people that live in Maryland. The reason that they chose Maryland was because Maryland recently pushed their statute of limitations back to 38 years, which
says eliminated completely, actually.
Oh, okay. So great. So, or it was 30. No, I got it backwards. It was, they used to have 38 years. Now they said, nope, we're not doing that anymore. And we're seeing a lot of states do that, thankfully, because there shouldn't be a statute of limitations on these kinds of crimes. For anyone.
In Maryland, it was in 2023, it was called the Child Victims Act. Yeah.
So this is great, but it also opens a new can of worms. But especially, it's a pattern, the pattern of behavior that was outlined in Janel's lawsuit can be established back to the 80s now.
Yep.
So, and to a large degree, this even being filed, hopefully, helps them and their case, because this is also public too. And what I found interesting, they used a lot of God, no wonder Vince didn't want that documentary out, because it's being quoted right in these lawsuits.
What the huge cell phone in hindsight for that documentary. You could already make the connection to the 80s because of the female referee.
Rita Chatterton. We've talked about
Chatterton.
Yeah.
It went away because of the settlement, but there's clearly you can draw the inference, and a court of law can also draw upon that a settlement was reached. It's not completely untouchable in terms of a frame of reference here. I have no sympathy for people who may still be alive, who were complicit by inaction, who may now be named, who may now be shamed, and may have to live the rest of their days after a career laden with glory and platitudes and money and accomplishments. They then have that asterisk of they let little kids be sexually assaulted.
Yeah. And
you live and die by the actions that you think, you know what I mean? You live and die by your actions.
It's horrible. And you said it. We were watching these shows and we were watching this product, and these people were being used behind the scenes while it was happening. And so I do understand that people and their member berries and their nostalgia feels don't want to accept that this is reality, but it keeps happening. And a lot of people, unfortunately, Mel Phillips will only pay if you believe that there's some sort of hell to pay, as it were. But he's gone now, and so he doesn't have to answer for his crimes. But hopefully some of these other people that are named are. And I think the really big thing here is that usually it's the WWE and usually it's Vince. And in Janel's case, it's WWE and Vince and John Laurinaitis. Well, in this particular case, unlike the Connecticut, just to sort of insert this in there, is that there's 3 cases now pending against the WWE for the exact same kind of behavior, because and I haven't read the writer's lawsuit yet, so I'm not going to get into that. But the former WWE writers have filed a lawsuit in Connecticut against the company, saying that they fostered a very similar environment inside the writer's room. And they cited things like just the stuff we all know about Vince, where it's he hates sneezing and he hates this and he hates that. And if you check out Brandon Thurston, John Pollock, and obviously BJ Bethel, they've been doing a lot of work on this stuff. And so they talked about the Connecticut lawsuit. But there's 3 lawsuits pending against WWE right now in 3 separate districts. But it's the same behavior.
Yes. Can you fill me in on when the lawsuit by the writer was filed? Because I knew that there was the article that dropped from Rolling Stone, but I don't know when the lawsuit was filed. Can you give me a little bit more backstory?
I thought it happened because I thought that the article had dropped because it had been filed.
I see.
Was my understanding. I would have to, like I said, I haven't gone looking for that one because I was dealing with this one, but
sure.
It's to the best of my knowledge, what I was reading BJ's notes and some of his articles is that they have filed it in a Connecticut district. And I was reading the opening plaintiff statements of what they're alleging. And it's right on the front page. They quoted the documentary in their initial filing, and it was similar in the Baltimore County filing. They quoted it throughout the lawsuit.
This is how much content there is that is levied against the WWE. I cannot keep track of it.
Yeah, but honestly, it's the same behavior over and over.
One terrible lawsuit should be enough for them. Let's all hands on deck. Let's figure this out. You're telling me, and I knew there were two. Sure. The fact that you're telling me that there's 3, because I knew of the article about Rolling Stone, but to be frank, I knew about all that stuff when the article dropped, so I never actually read the article. It was there's nothing in this article I think that I need to know about the life of working in WWE writer's room. The stories have been there for years. Didn't feel like it was an article meant for me. And then life happened, and I just never got to
it. Of course, life. Silly old life. It's always around to
yeah. But it's not that I didn't care.
No, I don't want to be totally 100, but I'm fairly certain that the reason that from what I was reading of the notes, because I bookmarked as everything, because it happened, the Ring Boy suit and the Connecticut thing happened within about 4 or 5 days of each other. So it was I found myself bookmarking one lawsuit and went, oh, this is a different lawsuit. And I was because I was I had to bookmark all of their work so that I could go back and sort of read their articles. And I was like, this just keeps happening. And it was able to link me to at least, I don't know if it's been filed, but it was at least able to link me to the page. So the thing exists to the best of my knowledge. Cause I was whoa. And that one named the company, obviously that was it was, but going back to the idea that finally,
I thought it, okay. So there might be another lawsuit, but there was the writer last year, Brittany Abrams.
Okay.
Abraham, right? That she was the black writer
who said the same thing that
the racist stereotype,
guys are saying.
All these things.
Okay. You're fact checking to make absolute sure for me, which is excellent.
Yes, I'm just looking this up because
no, I don't want to
get things right. I want to make sure that if I'm asking a question, I want to make sure that yes.
No,
apparently, according to the Rolling Stone article that I'm scanning, that I should have read in the first place, that would have gotten us out of this mess. The lawsuit was dismissed.
Well, again, I bookmarked so much stuff that
the whole issue is there's so many lawsuits to keep track of that all are just, these are real. This is a real writer's lawsuit that we're talking about here that was in the Rolling Stone article. So this is probably one of the 3. If not, it's a 4th one. It's still not great. The matter was resolved amicably, but we're never going to find out. And
of course,
she's clearly not talking about it ever again. So you can infer whatever you want to infer about what her experiences were and what she will not be speaking about in the future. So if she got some type of monetary justice, I applaud her for being able to speak her truth and getting some type of recompense for a work environment she never should have been exposed to.
It chokes me up a little bit because it just gets worse. I used to work with kids, so I take that particularly. Not that anybody would take it any less, but It's hurt. It's hurtful, and I'm glad. It makes me glad that for better or worse, that I've kind of like said, okay, that WWE is not for me, and then these things have sort of enhanced that feeling. And I don't shame anyone who is a WWE person. That is, you like what you like, do what you want to do, but please acknowledge that these things are happening, and don't or at the very least, like, you don't have to troll people that are talking about this stuff. You don't have to say anything. If you know what I mean? I think that too often are these people being made, oh, she kept talking once she started talking once the money stopped coming. And it's like, well, fundamentally, that would be her right under an actually well-documented, formed contract, which I'm pretty sure we've established isn't what happened there with the NDA. But the fact that she's talking at all is a huge deal. It takes an enormous amount of stamina, and we've heard from Ann Callis, her lawyer, that she has had things so far as, again, trigger warning, but suicidal ideation and so forth, because of course you would. And they need to get their comeuppance on these things. They need to, it's hopefully the naming of Linda McMahon, which I know I keep coming back to it, but it's incredibly important because she's gotten away. She's gotten out from under things. She's bought her way out of things. Let's be real. She worked for the Trump administration. That's just a fact. It's just
she wanted to be on the cabinet.
She was his campaign management for a period, or campaign manager for a period of time. These are facts. They have lawsuits in the judicial system. We don't know what's going to happen. We know what's already happened. It's scary. It's scary to think about the fact that some of these people may not get the justice that they deserve. But here's hoping that all of these things combined, because all of this is public record, and it's all, I say this to Sam every week, it's all admissible, which means that they can cite now, in Janelle's case, hey, there's this whole other ring boy scandal, and there's this, a new ring boy suit, and there's articles written about it. And I think I want to go back, because I think Phil Munchnick did an actual podcast and talked about his articles, because they're so involved in the larger. He covered it so closely, and he called it out so much that he's become a part of these legal proceedings in text. So I really want to hear what he has to say about all of it. And because I respect him and the work he's done on it, and he's one of the voices that's been out there the whole time going, this is a thing. This is a thing. Mel Phillips was a pedophile. Terry Garvin and Pat Patterson were helping. Everybody knew. Everybody knew. Everybody knew that it was this. Everybody knows that Vince doesn't like sneezing. Everybody knows that you can't say anything out of line in the writer's room. It's the level of manipulation is astounding. And I don't know. We like to follow it here because we want to make sure that everybody remembers that these people exist. And the reason that we wanted to talk about the newest lawsuit was because it's like, there's more victims here. Let's make sure that we're supporting them. And yeah.
Not only the manipulation, also cowardice. Because WWE in no way, shape, or form needs the fans to protect them in this situation. And the fact that they have weaponized fans to go after men like Phil Mushnick, who more than likely won't be addressing this more than here or there because of the vitriol he's received in the past. It's just you don't need nameless, faceless fans to carry the banner of WWE, to protect them, and to die on the sword for this or for anything else. It absolutely blows my mind the people who make their identity such. I don't want to see fed pilled. I don't want to see stands or anything like that, but literally make their identity the fact that like an organization or some type of entertainment platform, be it like a PS5 fan or a WWE fan or a Marvel fan or a Star
Wars fan or a video game fan. I mean, you're someone that's probably familiar with Gamergate.
Yes.
So
the level of toxicity and self-ownership of something that does not belong to you.
Yes.
The feelings that you have regarding it belong to you, but that actual thing, WWE, does not belong to you, and you cannot treat it as something that like you have to die on the sword for. Like Vince McMahon does not care about you. Triple H does not care about you. Like they care about your money and they care about your eyeballs and they care about making you happy. And if you're sick, they will do things to, make your experience better because it helps them in the long run. It makes them feel good. But the minute it was not to their advantage, they wouldn't do it anymore. Like that's the reality of the situation. It's like these are altruistic people in a business world. I'm not necessarily sure that, when you can look back in the history and what these people were complicit of in the past, you can honestly say that these are whole and true altruistic good people. They look like people that have made compromises in the past to get where they are today, and some of those compromises might actually disgust you. But when you get to the point of it, it's like they also have used multiple times, and this goes to ratings wars and dropping, fast nationals.
Oh God, that.
Like trying to cook people on Twitter with like bad ideas.
Oh no, they're botting people like
it's all of it.
They're botting people like they were a political organization. They are. I mean, because she's politically connected, it makes complete sense to me. Like Sam got it. I mean, early on because, and it was BJ that pointed it out to her. We've talked about that in the past. Is that she wrote an article about Janel's situation, and she started getting hammered one day, and BJ was like, "This looks like a bot attack," and it was like I jumped in there because I back in the 2016 campaign was on politics Twitter, which was a battlefield, and that was where they laid the groundwork for that sort of thing. Nowadays, it's almost as if you're not doing that as a corporation, you are actually like. It's that old like what
it's not a defensive position anymore. Like you have a defensive position.
If you're not cheating, you're not trying. It's that attitude. It's the old like this is no longer. This is part of your infrastructure as a business. Otherwise, you're behind everybody else, and that's terrible when you consider what we're talking about here. We're not talking about like. I mean, it's bad enough that it's manipulating social, like cultural, pop culture. But these are human beings. Janelle is a human being. These five
children, yes.
Children, they were human beings that were
human children.
Used. People that are the age of many of the people that maybe like we know. I mean, I know. I just can't.
I'm with you. I mean, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth when the fans and social media and bots are weaponized against AEW and ratings and all that. It's disgusting.
I hate tribalism on both sides.
But it is absolutely disgusting when that same strategy is used to curry public support in light of unspeakable actions.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. I don't think that there's
like you can't look yourselves in the mirror and say, I'm doing a good job in life if you're working for WWE in a public relations campaign and your job is to make them look like a spring, like a fresh daisy spring.
Yeah, that's why it's probably, and I mean, I'm not surprised per se, but it's been disappointing to hear the reactions of WWE wrestlers, talent to Janelle. Fortunately, we always like to point out the fact that Bret Hart actually apologized to Rita Chatterton and told her that he believed her, and that's an amazing thing. And I wish that people would take a page out of that book, because that's it, these are humans, and it needs to be taken into account. And
the idea of emotional maturity is not something that you genuinely conflate with pro wrestling and pro wrestling in general.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean that they are devoid of being expected to have it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you care about these children when they come to your signing, when the public spotlight, and they are, at the WWE like Universe Wrestle Fest or whatever it is, and you're taking the photos with them, and then you're at the other side of it, speaking in the side of your mouth and saying, "Oh, I wasn't there," blah blah blah, or just you cannot. The money must be nice, and there's really the money and the opportunity is something that, like, you have to make that choice. Like, you have to make the choice of, like, what is okay with you. And there are people like Eric Young who have walked away and just said, I can't do it. And we've all given him a lot of credit for that, because that was not an easy decision for him.
Well, no, of course, this is
right, but
the company.
But we all respected it, and we all knew deep down it was the right thing to do. Everyone got lit up and said, "What a fucking idiot!" What are you doing? Why are you walking away? If somebody said that about him on social media, like, they didn't have an account the next day. Like,
yeah, I was going to say that would be the greatest ratio ever seen on wrestling Twitter.
But he was also the exception to the rule, right? Like, there were people that might have spoken up, right? They might have spoken up and may have quietly been released or anything like that. But the level of, I'm taking a stand, I was going to work with him, that didn't happen a whole lot. A whole lot of people didn't do that one. When he came back, when Vince McMahon came back, like a year and a half ago. Oh my
gosh, yeah.
And
well, no, they cheered for him. They cheered for him.
People cheer for him. None of the wrestlers walked out. It's just, like it. Long time ago, and
they
this
always
as well.
use the excuse that Vince, I wouldn't have a life without Vince, and I wouldn't have a career without Vince, and I wouldn't have these I have had all these opportunities, and I'm able to provide for my family. And it's like, two things, as Sam loves to say, two things can be true at one time.
Both things can be true.
This person can have given you these opportunities and also be not only an abuser himself, but complicit in other abuse.
Yes, like, people are complex.
Can be true, and I think it's very indicative of. We always say wrestling mirrors life. Mm-hmm. It's very indicative of what our cultural values are. When that's where we are, is, well, the guy gave me all these opportunities, so, and I mean, a lot of the answers are things like, he's in a really tough situation, and I hope Vince comes out of it okay. It's never, these people aren't, at the very least, acknowledge the victims. Sure. At the absolute baseline, as a human, acknowledge that there are victims who have alleged these horrible things. That should, to me, that's like the lowest bar on the planet.
If there's ever a settlement, and there's probably going to be a settlement,
it'll be
one of those lines is going to be WWE accepts no, like, finding of wrongdoing.
Of course.
Right? Like, there's going to be the line in there. Yep. And so it'll always be in the public
and that'll be canon, and that's it.
And that'll be the thing. But people will know and it will always just kind of be a thing. You and I have both come from a generation where, like, we as young adults and adults began to have access to people who we admired, be it like from the Renaissance fair world or comic book world or movies or whatever. And you and I both probably found out around the same time that the people that we perceived to be on the screen were not the people that they actually were. And some people are okay with the fact that reality supersedes your fantasy idealization of somebody. You know, it's like, I think Seth Rollins is great when I watch him on the screen. I may not like him at all if I met him in real life. You know, I met Honky Tonk Man one time in real life, and I never want to be within 10 yards of him ever again. Like, it was just one of those, like, you find out real quick what your tolerance is for the reality rather than the fantasy of the people that you admire. And
especially when I think on the other side of that is that there have been, I think I told you guys this privately, but my first experience was with the Monkees when my sister and I she was a tween and I was a teen, and we drove up to the Poconos to, you know, meet Mikey, you know, Mickey and Peter and Davey, and we caught Mickey Dolenz in the hallway and we didn't have a pen on us, and he was such a jerk to us. And my sister was so young, and I just remember her being so sad. And so it wasn't just me getting like that crushing blow of the reality. And I know it's such a funny thing, but they were showing the Monkees in syndication. It was just over and over in reruns on one of our channels.
Nick at Night and the whole deal.
So,
I remember.
Yeah, so it was like, oh my God, we love this. And I mean, Mike was my favorite. So, and the fact that he wasn't on that tour, if we were older, we definitely would have like seen the writing on the wall. But we were both kids, young, and that was our first experience. But it was like, you didn't just disappoint me, you disappointed my sister, and that's worse. And
that's where I draw the line. You do not mess with her.
I'm allowed to do whatever I want,
right?
But
nobody else gets to do that to her.
Nobody does, and that is like, that was worse. And so that, I mean, it's a hard way to learn. But what I've noticed, like, as on the counter to that, is that in the Renaissance fair scene and in the wrestling, independent wrestling especially, when you meet some of these guys, Tommaso Ciampa, this is a story that, you know, some of our viewers have heard, but he walked by us at an Evolve event and looked at Bob, my husband, and said, hey, nice beard. And we both turned around and said thank you, because he had been cultivating it for a long time and realized it was Ciampa. And they took a picture together, and it was awesome. And it was like, see, you don't have to be a dick. Yeah. You don't have to. You can actually be a decent human and someone who's famous. You can turn
it off for a moment.
And I've had a good friend of mine, Matt Okada, and even says, in his case, meet your heroes. Be
pleasantly surprised, but have an expectation.
But manage well, and I mean, this is like something that we actually have this written down on a piece of paper, and it's on our fridge. It says managing expectations. And that's sort of how it's kind of a constant reminder, because that's like life in general.
Yes.
But certainly when we're dealing with like the glitz and glamour, but I mean, even what we're talking about, it's like, we love those people. And so we see the allure for a little kid that's like, look at that belt and look at that ring and look at these things and look at what they did to those people. And it's like, so we have to, like you said, and I think this is the most important thing, is we have to pick and choose, and we have to acknowledge the victims. We have to remember that they exist. We need to believe them. We need to treat them with respect. I just wish I was at minimum. I mean, I'm not like asking people. There's a lot going on in the world. It's hard all over. Like, I'm not asking people to throw away their careers. But thank you, Paul. But
we'll get to these comments in just a minute. It's my job to be on top of these comments, so we're gonna get.
Yeah, Jeremy's helping me out now. Guys. I don't know why my live chat isn't showing up. I didn't realize everyone was here. Welcome, but
hello, everybody.
It just, it's like it randomly decided to catch up. just what was my point there? Whatever. You probably made it. It was the meeting your heroes thing. Is obviously managing your expectations with these things, and seeing where the lore and sort of circling it all the way back to why. And that is, I just, for me, it's like either don't say anything, or at least say, I've acknowledged these people that have said that these things happen, and I believe that I believe them, and I acknowledge them.
Our lives are built on moments in which we have the opportunity to make the right or wrong decision, and at the moment we don't realize what a huge moment it is. But in hindsight, like, there's a handful of them in life, and you have to decide what type of person you are when that happens. And some people can make the right decision and just live blissfully knowing that, like, never think twice about what could have gone wrong. And other people will make the wrong decision, and there will be consequences that follow them for the rest of their lives, whether they like it or not. And there's a lot of people who orbited the trauma of these child survivors that may have to revisit exactly what complicity that they have. So let's get to these. Let's get to these comments.
Totally.
Great Thistle. All they care about is the money. It is a business. Got to be honest. They probably do only care about the money. If they cared a little bit more about the social conscience that around that money, I think we could all sleep a little bit better at night. But right now,
what I always think is weird about that is that, and this goes all the way back to, because I still maintain that the NFL got it completely wrong. What they should have done was actually embraced Colin Kaepernick and turned it into something bigger than, because athletes have been, I'm a big supporter of his. I think that they have proven over and over how right he was. Hey, listen, I'm a Seahawks fan. This is not like, this goes bigger than that. Is that, like, I thought, and this included, I felt this way about the concussion thing too, is own it. Pay these people, take care of them, give them medical health. Like, your future, not that the NFL has to, it's like the worst example ever because they're making money hand over fist, but they would even be making more money if they were able to acknowledge, because they would be more popular with people my age or younger than me who don't have any time in their lives anymore for the kind of division. Because kids are smarter than people think. They're dumb. Teenagers and tweens are dumb, but they're also smarter than people think. And we can learn a lot from listening to some of them.
Yes.
Like, I mean, we have a kid here in our community who, like, he organized a thing to save his dog because the dog got sick, and all the locals came out and, like, helped him out. And so his dog was saved, and he made so much money that he started his own charity. So every year, it's Henry's Lemonade, and Pickles is the name of the dog. And this kid is like my niece's age or something, like 12, 11. But every year now for the last like 3 or 4 years, he's done Henry's Lemonade thing, and he does it to raise money to help other people who can't pay for their pets' care.
Look for the helpers.
To support them. Like,
look for the helpers. They're always out there.
That's what that kid should be doing. And that kid kind of puts adults to shame when you think about what we're talking about and the way that they react. Because it's like, that kid is making us look like a-holes when we are supporting, instead of supporting the abusers,
we're tearing down the opportunities.
And not the survivors.
We're absolutely tearing down the opportunity for these children to thrive, to protect people who no longer deserve our protection because of the things that they have done to steal the bright futures of kids that we failed at protecting.
Exactly. Nailed it.
So, All right, Brad. Hello, Brad. I love to see your comments here. I know it's just entertainment, but I find it so hard to separate the criminal from the art here. I just can't support a company that's okay with covering up pedophilia, rape, sex trafficking, and murder.
Oh yeah, the murder.
You're not wrong. Everybody has a threshold. Like there's a comic book that's coming out, an omnibus, in January, and it's a rare reprint of content from DC and Marvel.
Okay.
And one of the writers of two of the issues that they're not publishing was convicted of child sexual things.
Okay.
His name is Gerard Jones. So those issues are not in there. This is a thing that, frankly, like, companies are aware that people cannot stomach being exposed to content that can, like, trigger them and make them feel that way. There are companies who treat that responsibility with the utmost and will not even publish things to give this individual even the slightest amount of residuals, to make their life any way better as a result of these things. WWE doesn't have that kind of complicity, or doesn't have that kind of, like, accountability within themselves. They will keep doing whatever it is that they need to do to keep the train moving, rather than own the accountability and be a better company and grow from there. All of their growth and being better as a company was as a response to something that they weren't doing, and then they public relationed it into some type of upside. They're very good at it.
But they don't do it until they have to. They wait until they absolutely have to. Like, I would be curious to know, like, how is the comic community, like, are people mad about that? Are they glad about that? Is the response?
It happened so much after
online
the fact.
Response.
Like, it happened so much after the fact that it's really just who loses out, and it's the people who wanted a complete omnibus. They wanted everything to be in there. And now that they won't be able to do anything but find it on a pirate website online somewhere, and, like, it won't be printed on a page for them to actually touch. And it's just like, if that's the level of, like, I need it in my life, you may need to reassess, like, exactly
your priorities are off.
Like, I have the original issue that, like, the thing, like, I forgot that this guy had even done this thing until it was reminded to me by someone who's paying way more attention to the comic world than I am. But it is in the awareness. Like, it is one of those things that, like, oh, this is happening because this thing happened years ago, and a number of books that this person had written that were popular at some point, you just can't find anymore, and you never will find. And, people will, in the comic community, speak of affinity of these things. They're like, oh, this was a great thing. Too bad he was, doing these things to children, as opposed to other people that are just like, I'm sorry, I just can't read this anymore. I can't read this content, like Neil Gaiman and stuff like with the stuff that he has going on. It's the same thing. Like, you cannot separate the content from the creator in a lot of ways. And some people can't. Everybody has a different compartmentalization factor. And passing judgment from one person to the next about exactly what they find acceptable is a slippery slope.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because everyone has a different lived experience that gets you up to this point. It's like, I don't know what lived experience if you have any abuse or trauma in your life. You do not know my lived experience and what abuse and trauma in my life. How that translates into how we consume content nowadays is exactly like that slippery slope that I talk about. So when Brad says this kind of thing, I'm like, I get it. I totally understand. There are hard no's for people that are soft no's for others. There are yeses for people that are no's for others. And that is a slippery slope. So all we can do is respect the limitations that other people have placed on themselves and hope that they have made the most responsible decision for themselves and what content they watch and how they choose to interact with people after all said and done.
I really like how you're putting it, because you're kind of just exactly right. You're essentially saying, this is how I want a human.
Yeah.
This is how I choose to human. My humanity is played out in our actions are our character, like they tell all. I mean, at the end of the day, especially in our society, like the only thing we can do is vote with our wallets. So it's like every time I'm like switching something off the TV, it's like I'm doing it consciously it's like, get that 700 Club or whatever off my TV, because I don't want them to get one view, not even one. That's why I even back in the day, I learned long ago and even I don't do this much, but don't retweet people, don't quote tweet them, don't if you're gonna say something, screenshot it and put it in your thing. And because even then you're elevating them, so it's still a slippery slope. So it's being online is, I think the online thing, like, this was easier when you said
online was a mistake.
No, see, I disagree with that. It sucks so hard.
We were not ready
the
for
internet
it.
is nothing. It's nothing more than a tool. The internet
Society
is a tool.
was not ready for the internet.
It's a tool. It's because we're not mature enough to use it. That's the problem.
Absolutely. I am right there with you. We are speaking the same language and coming at different angles here.
It's just, it's so frustrating because it's such an amazing thing. Like, we're talking in two totally different.
The Jeff Goldblum meme. We all thought about whether we could. We never thought about whether we
Well,
could.
we should. Yeah.
That's the internet in 2024.
That's so true. Oh, man. All right.
We're
let's move
trying
on
to make
something
light in light of a really serious, like, we've talked about this for about 50 minutes now, and we can talk about it more. There's so much. We still got some, Daz has got some stuff here, but it's just
okay, let's answer some people's talk.
Lisa Gifford got grief for suggesting from her experience that WWE may not have the best interest of indies at heart with their new initiative, which is
I'm
the
worried
WWE
about that.
ID.
The only reason I wanted to bring that up actually is because I'm concerned because of these things. That's so funny, because I was actually going to say something like that exactly to you if we talked about that, because that is kind of the elephant. But
this is kind of two different topics, because this is Lisa getting attacked from the WWE people that didn't need to be like on the Shield, you know. And we'll get to the WWE ID stuff, because I think Daz has got some, like, bringing it up is a big thing.
Yeah, that's
But you think about, like, people should be able to say this is bad and not feel like robots are coming after them to make them feel terrible because the company has a plan. People disagree with it. Company says, press a button and, like, let's get that kind of response out of the way. It's a form of censorship in a way. It's like you're trying to quiet people down.
It's a huge censorship. I had activist friends during 2016 who were being thrown off of Twitter for saying the truth over and over and over again. And these are people who I'd be sitting in my living room watching the national news and their tweets would show up. And I'm like, what the H? Like, it's just too much. Like, these companies at the end of the day, both parties are companies. They are companies. Like, the DNC and the RNC are corporations. They are incorporated. So,
we're going to have, what, 200 people voting, 200 million people voting on Tuesday. And everybody's voting based off of a different set of values.
Oh, of course.
Like, there are major touch point issues, like the body rights that everybody should have, like, autonomy to the decisions of their own body. Like, why are we litigating this in 2024? That's absolutely insane. Like, you should not have anyone telling you what decisions to make with your body. Nobody's telling me what decisions I should make with my body. Like, exactly what What makes it different for you? I don't get it. Like, vote accordingly. So Daz has friends who say fans good things have happened to their lives because of Vince and K. McMahon. Maybe true, but it's a byproduct. World War II films have given me joy, but it doesn't mean World War II was a good thing.
Perfectly put, Daza.
Oh. And then Brad has, I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of wrestlers over the past few years, befriending some. The nicest with Jay White and how he treated Kathy like a princess. I really like Jay White, so it makes me happy.
That's good to hear. I'm really glad because he's one of my favorites, and I would hate to hear that he was a butthead. It would just not make me happy.
Melker treated Daz like a princess apparently as well. So
nice.
That's I love to hear it. I love to see it.
Anytime, yeah.
Jay took extra time to make her comfortable. I wanted to take this minute to just applaud, and every time I see Brad just shower absolute love on his kid. Kathy at every opportunity.
Oh yeah, she's one of us.
The Friday night 80s movies experiment that they do with each other is absolutely delightful, and I may or may not live vicariously through the experiences that he shares about that.
Oh, I totally do. I totally do. That's so funny that you say that because I love it. I realized a while ago, and Sam and I even talked about this on the show a couple times, is we now live vicariously through Kathy a lot too, because we're always like, yay! And I love the movie thing because he is showing her some bangers of some some classic fun nostalgia, or some ones that I'm just like, oh yes, I could quote this all night long. Like, it's fun seeing things. Like, if you don't have your own, like you have nieces and stuff, and my niece is not close by, so I don't get to watch her reactions to stuff. Mm-hmm. But it is fun. See, this is using the internet properly. Is him sharing all of his good experiences that he's using for his child. But see, like, just back to what you were saying, is that unfortunately that child has less rights at her age than I did at her age, and that pisses me off.
Like, the idea that women were not allowed to open up a bank account until like the 1970s, and like without
this wasn't that long ago.
This wasn't that long ago, and we're talking about like
women have only had the vote. 2018 was 100 years. It's not like we only make up. Because I was curious about this, is that even though we make up 51.02% of the population, we're still only represented in Congress by about 6% total.
One of the things that I had to relearn was that when I became an adult, right, that all of these things that were my rights as an adult, I just assumed had always existed. It wasn't just a thing that people had fought for maybe a few years before, or 20 years before, or 50 years before. It was just always a thing. And whatever part of life that we were at in terms of how far our rights were extended, you're then like, well, if it's going that, why aren't my rights like at this point? Or why is it's like, it should always be a bit more and a bit more and a bit more of a push for more like personal rights that you can have that do not infringe on the life and livelihood of others. It's like your gun rights, as long as like have a gun, but be responsible and don't like get your gun shit in anyone else's lives. And we're good. That's it.
Which 98 or 97% of the freaking gun owning population agree with. That's like the madness of our this sort of like snake eating itself that is America sometimes, is like,
I am all for the statute of limitations opening up and more people being accountable for the crimes that people that can't be held accountable to the full extent of the law. These parents that are getting put in jail for their kids doing these shooting sprees, they failed as parents. They failed.
But it's taken since this was, and because that happened, I mean, that was next door to me practically. Mm-hmm. That was Oakland High School is in the adjacent county to mine.
Awful.
Unfortunately.
Awful.
And again, we've had violence on the campus of MSU as well. When yeah,
we
think I
all
lost my train of
deserve a
thought a little,
right.
but
We all deserve a right to a life free of
it's
fear in every way,
yes.
shape, and form.
And I think that one of my biggest pet peeves about these things is that we talk about sanctity of life, but kids are doing disaster drills and you know, I've even had to talk to my sister about this, where it's like I've had to have a talk with her about what happens if an active shooter drills, like in schools,
Like yes,
putting, and it's like so horrible because it's like I don't get a say, and I don't have kids of my own, so you know I can't possibly know what I'm talking about. But if I did, I can't have I don't have a say in when my kids are being exposed to the ideas of violence anymore, because they have to be taught at an elementary school level how to get under their desk and run into a closet if somebody comes into their school, and we're all okay with that.
right. The absolute bravery to even have children in this day and age. That's
I
the
know,
part
right?
for me.
Oh
Like,
God, bless my friends. I don't
like
bless
just
you
the
all.
idea that you go every day and you send your kid away off to school, and in the back of your mind, you have to do whatever it is to make yourself okay, that you know that you're going to see them at the end of the day. You know, when we were growing up, that was a given.
I know,
You know, that was a comfort. Like, you knew that you would able to just like walk home from school, no problem, like pure daylight.
we were just
wasn't gonna be an
talking
issue.
about this. We were talking about the fact that, I mean, I'm old enough that until the streetlights went out, like you'd
Right?
leave in the morning and
We
no
were
one would know.
we
I
were
mean, if
playing
someone
street
went
baseball.
missing, it would be like 24 hours or something before anyone would even realize it back those days, because there's no cell phones. There's no,
You're drinking from the water hose. You're playing until like the
man.
street lights go on. The whole deal. Like, it was.
And I don't like, it's okay, but
Yeah.
like crime is down. So why is it like there's a disconnect, and the disconnect gets like, I think WWE is
our
like
leaders have failed us. Even in the WWE.
Oh God,
our leaders
in every possible
have failed
way.
us. The people who we count on for our entertainment, for our leadership, for guidance, there's more of a propensity in every aspect of our lives to have to brace for disappointment for those that we need guidance from than it is that we find ourselves continually finding that they have met our expectations as heroes. Like, we are now the adults of the world. We are the ones that have to set the example for everyone else.
We were kind of the adults the whole time, Jeremy.
You know what I'm saying. It's just like, but we weren't supposed to be. Like, we weren't.
I know
like,
that, and that's why I'm glad that a lot of
we were a 9/11 generation. Our generation grew up on 2001 when we realized that this company, or this country company, Freudian slip right there.
You're fine. I mean,
was going to war. No, the United States is sometimes a company. That was where I was going with on that one.
I've read way too many books about the how the economy works, because I ended up, I felt the meme stock people sent me into an economics click hole that I've not. Yes. I just finished Power Failure, the business book that Garrett had suggested, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm cutting off my econ stuff. I can't take it anymore. I know how this stuff runs the world too much. And
where's my Noam Chomsky textbook? Damn it!
Oh, you know what? Read that though. I did. Noam Chomsky blew my mind at 18 years old. He's my nerd because with his I like the linguistic portion of it more than, but. Yes. Oh my gosh. We got off on the weirdest tangent ever. And do we have more comments here that we want to tackle? Or we
have Lady B.
Hi,
Lady B. For the sake of
Lady B.
talent and employees, I hope they are actively doing media training across the board, because national media will get more aggressive on this story after the election. I haven't read it, won't cut it on the national stage. Wrestling media is too kind on them on this issue, and they're definitely in a false sense of security. Yeah, I definitely think that the worst has not come yet. And the Southern District of New York is breathing down their necks. And after that
The
happens,
case is stayed at the request of the Department of Justice. That's a
so-
big deal. And as people like Mike Gilbert will tell you, because we both sort of share the same sort of like, we know about the FBI and the CIA and all those places. And we're like, when they get like, feds don't like to get effed over. They don't, things get in their craw. And this guy's gotten away from them like historically. And so, I mean,
and Cal is litigating their court case outside of court. They are.
And I still think he can get banged. I mean, at the end of the day, I still think he can get taken out on the money because he was using shareholder money. And that's like the biggest no-no in the universe.
So what is the difference between the playbook that Ann Callis is using and whatever WWE does to tear down people that they are doing? It is just a constant stream of negative publicity towards their opponent to keep the conversation on them rather than what they have. They don't have anything on Janel Grant. If they did, it'd be out. They have nothing.
They've tried. They did that love letter thing.
They have nothing. And it did nothing.
That love letter fell so flat and would look like
love letter just felt creepy. You know,
but that's what they were putting it out there for. I mean, that was
but it wasn't creepy for her, it was creepy for them.
Yeah.
Like you are putting out this, like, why are you putting out this letter? We don't know if she wrote it. You could have had somebody else write it. What even is this? Are we in the 50s? Did she pass it to you like during a board meeting? Like what is happening? Did you pack a lunch and did she put it in the lunch? What's the content? Like the more that you try to unfurl it, it just sailed unhinged. She had a love letter. Okay, my wife passes me a note all the time. It doesn't mean she's happy with me. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck does a note even mean? Like, she has text messages from your phone. That is something you cannot take.
And she has explicit accounts of the thing. I mean, no.
It's so bad. It is so bad.
Really, you know what? But again, that stuff's admissible in court. So to me, it's like, if you guys want to keep doing that, keep doing it. Because for Ann Callis, they're just handing her the case.
She's just taking a swing in the batting cage every time that like they come on by. Like she's just like, all right,
great. She knows exactly what she's doing. So, and they knew they were in it for the long haul. I mean, she's done the Weinstein thing. She's got like the gal that we interviewed was from the media company, that the PR company that's helping. And Dr. Carr was incredibly. And for those of you that missed our interview with Professor Carr from the University of Michigan about human trafficking, that's up on the network. Great information, and it is very relatable even to the Ring Boys thing, because it plays right in what the things that she was giving us in terms of like, this is the definition of human trafficking and stuff like that, where we actually went through that. It doesn't always have to be sexual and all of these things. Right there in what's going on. So the Ring Boy thing was not just about, I mean, those things are terrible, but the other side of that includes definitely human trafficking and the kinds of things that are exercised. So it's the patterns of behavior. Here's hoping that we get the
change that is required from
everyone.
Are we ready to bring on our other guest?
Yes, our semi-secret honorary broad who's going to do a quick run-in for us. Yeah, let's
we're going to bring him on.
Ta-da! Hey, 3-person view. Amazing. Welcome, Garrett Gonzalez, from the head of this crazy network that lets us stand up here or sit up here and talk crazy things about.
Well, you're only what, 75 minutes in or so, so you're just kind of getting started, right? Is it from your usual show?
One topic for the last hour. One topic.
We really, I didn't expect necessarily to I talked as much about it, but I think we had a good conversation about all of these things and making good choices and just the whole thing with WWE right now. It's this pattern of behavior where it's these suits are all about manipulation. They're all about, abuse, trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
any minute now. And Jeremy and I were just agreeing that we think that there may be another shoe waiting to drop, and we'll see what happens, I guess. On that front.
I read through the lawsuit. It took me like 4 days.
The Ring Boy one? You read that? Oh, I read it too. Okay.
I was going through it, and then like for the first part of it, I was like, okay, this has been reported. Like, we know this, we know that. And then when it got into the details of what Phillips was doing to these young boys at the time, and then how he, like, the strategy that was involved for him to do what he was doing, and the people who looked away, there were people who warned the boys to say, you should not be hanging out with this dude. Like, he's actually a bad dude. But to say that is one thing, and to step in is another thing. And that just, for whatever reason, was not the culture back then. And I think Tony Atlas kind of explained why in the Vince doc about saying, like, look, why would I go and say something about Pat? Vince, to Vince, Pat is a million times more valuable than I am. I'm just like a wrestler. So like that culture that they created, which is, you are not even valuable to us, we can replace you with anybody, like that helps enable stuff like this. So that was really interesting, but also very hard to read, which is why I had to stop constantly because of the grotesque details. I will say that they pretty much left no stone unturned, though. Like, they hammered everything. And I was talking to Dave not too long ago, and he said, out of all the lawsuits that he's actually seen, he thought that was the one that was the hardest, may not be the right word, but as far as the information in it, he's like, they have to move forward and settle this thing like immediately. It looks that bad for the company. And then the other thing is, this is only in Maryland. And how many other territories was he doing this in? And if he had only these 5 people in Maryland, how many people were in other areas of the country? Like, how many multipliers of men out there were harmed by him? So that is the other thing that just makes you kind of step back and go, wow, the craziness and the frustration that you get reading that whole thing. It just makes your mind kind of just go nuts.
I feel better that I'm not the only one that it took me a little while, because I kept starting and stopping and starting and stopping, and then kind of powered through with the rest. And it's ugly and it's wrong. And it shouldn't be like that. And as we've talked about for, like we said, 50 minutes, like, just acknowledge the victims and believe them and treat them with respect, and don't be a jerk on the internet or anywhere else. And as Jeremy very eloquently put it, you choose how you're going to live and be in the world, and that's up to you.
Can I say that I expected to be on here a little bit earlier than I was, but I had to save my house from being burned down.
Oh, no.
Because
this should be a good story. Let's hear this story.
My 9-year-old.
Let's lighten things up here.
She's actually a pretty brilliant child, but she has a her mind can wander in sometimes, as 9-year-olds do, and I have this joke with my wife because the boys are 15-year-old identical twins, and I tell her, I said, no, they're not really identical twins. It's really one of the 15-year-olds and the 9-year-old. They're really the identical twins, because they have this mindlessness that can happen sometimes. And so I get downstairs, and she has been able to make ramen for herself, but she's supposed to ask us so that we know that she's doing this. And so I get downstairs and I'm like, what is that smell? And of course, she's got iPad going, she's cooking, she's watching, she's doing like multiple things at once. And I looked at her and I said, you see this right here? And she's like, oh no, it's something underneath. Like she's now heightened that I'm like frustrated. And what we have is we have a cutting board that when I wash the cutting board at night, I put it on, where the grill is, because that's the open space where things can dry. And so she didn't realize that the wood was actually touching the burner. And so, and then so we had to have this conversation, because as children do, when you are very firm with them and they realize that they made a mistake, they can be very hard on themselves. And so we had this conversation. I was like, look, the way that I understand that you understand what just happened is that you don't go lay down on the couch and kind of be depressed. Like, you acknowledge, like, okay, I should have asked you, and we move on, because you're a child and you make mistakes. And I am glad that I was here to catch that mistake before it was a bigger mistake. And so she kind of snapped out pretty quickly, but she was scared. And the reason why she was so scared is because 4 years ago, when we moved into the place that we're in now, she had mindlessly knocked over, I think it was a candle, and didn't realize it, and burned like a hole into the carpet. So that's like the traumatizing thing for her, is anything related to a flame is like traumatizing for her. So she flashbacked, because I basically pulled the wood thing, and it was just a little bit of the corner was burnt. And I looked at it, but there was the orange flame that was like kind of like there. It didn't explode or anything, but I was like, look, this is fire. Like, you've dealt with this before, you know what this is. And so that kind of set her off a little bit, but all is good. I'm glad I caught it before I ran in here.
It's so much better though, the way that you do. I mean,
teachable
there's
moment.
plenty of parents that would like not handle that the way that you just did, and basically that child would just go away feeling bad and like not. I mean, you taught your child a lesson and they'll learn it, and it's cool, and you don't like have to shame them and make them feel bad about themselves, or make them feel like they can't make mistakes and they can't be a human being. Like, we are all, no one has it figured out, and anyone who tells you they do is full of it. Like, they just don't. I like the way you handled that. I wish that more people would because that's sort of how I like to handle kids when I was working in community centers and coaching.
I'm sure my boys, who are now in their mid-20s, they're like, that's not the way that you would have handled it if we
yeah, so you matured and learned some things. So
you mean growth as a human being? Amazing.
You might start a trend, Garrett. Gosh.
By the way, I hope we don't put this on the screen, but Brad, who we love Brad on Fight Game Media in the Discord and on this channel, on this show. But
I laughed. I'm not putting it up there.
He is also a Dodgers fan, or he was rooting for the Dodgers and they won the World Series. And he knows that I am, I would rather, not that I would cut off my pinky toe for the Giants to have this World Series instead of the Dodgers, but I would probably think about it for a couple minutes. And so he's mentioning that we should talk.
What was the disease that you hope that their star player gets? Not seriously, but
yeah,
kind of seriously.
Shohei, he hurt his shoulder, so thankfully he was able to play through it. But yeah, I always wish gout on Shohei.
He was supposed to.
That's such a Ren Fair thing to wish on someone. You may as well.
He was meant to be on the Giants.
A pox on you.
It's really a version of a pox. Yeah, a pox on.
You sound like you could go to Ren Fair sometime, Garrett. If you're saying stuff like that.
I had a English professor in my sophomore year in high school, and he would read the texts or the novels or whatever that we were doing it, but he would perform them. So and then I had a college professor who was very similar. So they would say these really dramatic things and read them out in as if they were on stage or something. A pox on both houses, and he would get up and do it. And so I love quotes like that. But yeah, the gout thing is
gout's a great one. It really is
funny. It's funny to me because It is actually really serious, but it's not like someone's gonna necessarily usually die from it. So it's I think it's in a safe space.
I do
You're not
think that
being
the
ableist,
pox
Garrett.
that-
It's okay because it's like flux and pox and gout. Because let's face it, like 90% of the like illnesses that those like the people in like medieval English literature type time frames. That's like that was the thing. They were just like, it's just gout.
Yeah.
Even
was,
like George
yeah.
Martin uses gout all throughout the entire Song of Ice and Fire thingy. So you're fine. It's totally modern.
Your curse was a rousing success, Garrett. A rousing success.
A rousing success.
Yeah.
Well
Fail.
cursed,
What a
my
fail.
brother.
All right, Mel, what do you got for us?
Let's talk about. Well, do we need to talk at all about this WWE thing here, the independent thing, or did we have enough talk about that and we can kind of?
We didn't really touch on it at all, but like basically they've got what promotions that they're contracted with to get a line on some of these talents. But I don't know.
I feel like they had before with like Evolve and Progress and things like that. So it's kind of like it feels like they're doing the same thing over again a little bit to me, because when I was seeing Evolve and Progress, they were already starting to infiltrate, taking them over because they were sending their talent to. I saw Mustafa Ali, I saw the Street Profits, I saw Adam Cole. Good Lord, Ciampa. There was a Time Splitters because Alex Shelley like did a run in that night, and why am I forgetting his name? The other
Kushida, Kevin Knight.
Thank you. Kushida was there that night, and he had just become a WWE star to the point where they were like, "We got a picture with him." But then all of a sudden, a bunch of the handlers started running out and being like, "No, you're not allowed to do that without paying." So it was like.
The one thing
I'm pretty good at getting around that because of Ren Fair, because I learned a long time ago how to get around that sort of thing, because it's just a big Ren Fair is kind of a big version of wrestling. It's there's wrestling acts in almost every Ren Fair now. They've gone way past the mud show now, where they're doing like combat shows and wrestling shows. And I even have our friend Hob the Troll there. He has a friend he was telling me about who's been doing a combat thing down in, I think it's the Medieval Fair that he's doing in Sarasota right now. And they're actually doing what I've suggested for a long time, which is like a Ren Fair wrestling thing. And because they're from the same stock. They come from the circus. They come from carny culture. They come from, it's all the same. I mean, so that's familiar territory on both sides. So I love it. But
so here's a question I have about WWE ID, and I don't know if folks read it this way, but WWE has they scout in real sports, right? They are looking at the world of amateur wrestling. They're looking at the world of gymnastics, and these aren't all people who may not have been interested in pro wrestling, but that's not. The scouting is based on sports versus pro wrestling. So they have their foot in the door there. They have NIL deals with college athletes. They recruit to the performance center. And so they have that. What they gave up was what AEW was taking advantage of, which was the independent scene. So these are people who do want to be wrestlers rather than being recruited to become wrestlers. So it seems like this is an acknowledgement that they need to cover that basis too. Now, people may ask, well, why don't you can just scout independent wrestling? Like I remember the first Bloodsport show I ever went to. It was very easy to spot Cameron Seaman, William Regal, and John Moxley at this event, just hanging out watching the show. But also they were kind of checking in on who's good. Karrion Kross, he may have been on that show, but there were tons of other people who were on that show. So it seems like this is a way for them to do the independent thing in a very WWE way, which is let's take advantage of our position and let's put some pressure on some of these wrestlers to see if they really believe they are, top level and would want to be on our radar versus, the flip would be, well, we see them doing well, and now let's discuss this with them. Like it seems like the onus is on the talent to go, hey, I want to be part of this program. And to them, maybe that's like an acknowledgement, like, okay, like they actually get what our business is. That's like step one in understanding what our business is. And so what I hope to see is and we've been talking about this on all of our shows, which is now that Tony Khan has the TV money that he does, now let's invest that in some infrastructure so that he can build out programs like this. He can build out an AEW school, or at least whomever they're aligned with can actually help create or enable that pipeline as well. Because, Tony's doing a lot of things, and some of them are hitting, and some of them I feel like they need a little bit more attention. But the infrastructure piece is not something that you can just book like wrestling. Like, you have to invest, and you have to hire, and you have to create, and you have to adapt, and you have to have experienced people come in and create what you want your company to become. And so I think having a school or having a pipeline to have a place for people to work and to get experience and to create your own version of NXT, if that's what you want to do, you have to invest in that, and you have to really pay attention to it. So I'm hopeful that Tony Khan does have his eye on something like that, because or else WWE's WWE ID, if it starts working, then they just may have a beeline on everybody. And then that kind of edges, that boxes AEW out on some people that would maybe better be utilized by AEW.
I mean, it's hard to say, because I look at things like we lost Evolve, and we lost, it's part of WWE, but we lost it as a regular thing here. We were talking like half dozen shows, maybe a year. At least 4 shows a year, probably. And then they did the Progress crossover show, and then we had so down in Sam's area, her promotion that had been there forever, they went under during COVID. So there's been new places like Ashe popping up to fill a gap where they need a promotion in that area, but they don't have one. And I've seen a lot of that. Like, we have CCW here, which is City Championship Wrestling. And they work with Rhino. They worked with Motor City before they went to WWE. I don't know how that'll work, but they work with local gyms. Like, there's already programs all around the country. So are they going to try and infiltrate them, or are they going to and then the other thing that I didn't like about the entire thing is that, unfortunately, I thought of Rachel Rose and the fact that they were working with Booker T's, what is it?
Reality
Wrestling. And it was something that popped up, and I just wanted to remind everybody that, what he was accused of, and they can go back and, I'll tweet the stuff off the Powerbombshells stuff that Sam and I talked about with Rachel Rose and stuff, and you can make your own decision on that. But that made me a little uncomfortable, and I think would to at least to the point that Brad was making, where Lisa was talking about, is that, are they going to start coming into the indie scenes that are burgeoning out of either rebuilding or completely new, in infiltrating them in ways that are you got to watch out for them. Let's be real. You got to watch out in every possible way. And maybe I like CCW. Maybe I don't need WWE crossing over with my local promotion that goes weekly and has a YouTube channel and is doing great. And Rhino just won a championship. And maybe I'm okay with them not being there in that space, because right now I feel like they have bigger things to focus on.
At face value, it doesn't seem like that is the intention, because I believe they saw the UK as a territory or a market that they could just conquer. And here, they already have conquered the US market. They are number one and are, can't get any higher than number one, right? They're probably the distance between AEW and WWE today has probably never been bigger. This is the biggest that it's ever been. So, they've already conquered it. So the way that I see the WWE ID thing as it relates to the UK thing, and Lisa would know way more about it. So I'm definitely taking her perspective into thought, is if they felt like AEW's independent pipeline was just doing a much better job than theirs. Then they would feel the need to kind of like go into some of these companies and go, we'll fund you guys, but you have to funnel all of your people to us. I don't sense that is happening because I don't think that they take independent wrestling that seriously. Like, I think they see it as, and you can see talent as a bunch of things. Where is your pipeline to talent? Well, I mentioned that they already have this other thing where they're scouting real athletes who are successful in their sports. They already have that market. I don't sense that AEW is even paying that close attention there. And so then now you have this other way with the independent wrestlers, which they kind of have been in and out for the last many, many years. So if they believe that they are losing tons of people who they wanted to sign to AEW, then yeah, what Lisa is saying, I think is really valid. But until AEW even gets on the ball with some of this stuff, I don't sense that they feel that there's even a threat. But I wanted to get back to what you said about Rachel Rose, because this is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
The risk of signing these deals with these companies, and everybody understands independent wrestling is not run like a corporation. There's no human resources at your independent pro wrestling. So situations like the Booker T thing, if those kind of things happen and WWE is connected to them, that could be bad for them. But you would think that they have vetted this well enough. And look, if Booker T wasn't latched on to reality wrestling, they probably don't even think twice about it. It's just because Booker T is one of their employees. But yeah, I'd be surprised if that Rachel Rose thing doesn't resurface.
I would too.
More so, sooner than later, because you guys talked about it. You posted it. It got a little bit of run, but it was kind of forgotten. And it's stuff like this that kind of brings those stories back. I love using this word when it comes to WWE, but it is the WWE hubris of them thinking everything we touch turns to gold. And something like this can sneak back up into the culture and the zeitgeist. And I hope it does, because I would love to know, what they are doing to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again, and what they are doing to make sure that, Rachel's situation is taken care of, or at least she's communicated, or at least she's acknowledged in some way. And
which they haven't actually, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah,
done.
and they should do that. They should get ahead of this.
He denied it. He blamed it on her. He not only denied it, he blamed it on her. So it's a tough. I mean, again, I'll go back and find some of our stuff on that so that you guys can kind of make your own decisions about this. And Sam wrote a bunch of. You can probably, I would almost guarantee, because her SEO is. I told her that she needs to change the spelling of her name to SEO, because when it comes to stories like this, she pops up first. And
Fightful had a piece on it, as far as I remember.
Yeah. Well, that was where we drew a lot of our initial information, and then she had. I mean, Sam obviously works, so she's doing the thing, and I mean, it should be a question, because I mean, there's like already an allegation there for a victim, a survivor that was not acknowledged, that was essentially like not just not acknowledged, but essentially like, no, it was all her fault. And for those who don't
know the story, there was
the first hour talking about is their behavior.
Yeah, there's a male wrestler who would essentially not leave her alone, is the story. I don't even remember the male wrestler's name, but when she started to complain about it. It's like they took it out on her instead of fixing the issue.
The language for this arrangement is really interesting. It was announced as a promotional tie-in, like not an actual like contractual agreement. It's a promotional tie-in in which WWE will assist these schools in training and mentorship and development and get access to these world-class facilities and trainers. So everything short of like an actual contract where there could be some assumed responsibility beyond like the HR for WWE. And it's five schools. It's Booker T's school, Reality of Wrestling. We got Cody Rhodes' Nightmare Factory, the Black and Brave Academy of Seth Rollins, Elite Pro Wrestling out of Concord, New Hampshire with Mike Holloway, Scott Reed. And then you got Rikishi's KnockX Pro in Los Angeles. So it's all these different little clusters around the world, around the United States. And I was thinking about
hasn't exactly been polite to the victims of some of these cases either. So that's also a bit of an issue.
Absolutely. And we definitely can't like undercut that in any way, shape, or form. The part that I was thinking about though was the comparison to the UK. And the UK, they just kind of the WWE blanketed the whole environment, just sucked up the whole thing. And Rev Pro was essentially the only one who was, hey, no, we're not a part of this, and they're still standing. They're not doing that in the US. They're basically just like, hey, if you want WWE and NIL isn't gonna be the place for you, this is the place. Like, you want to try to get your foot in the door in one of these 5 places. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but I don't see it as diabolical by WWE just yet. I see it as just another way in which they need to find this talent younger and younger, just like MLB is looking for 15-year-old, like, heat throwing pitchers, like it's what you do to find
junior hockey.
Talent. Yes.
If it signifies something.
Shout out to OTT. PS. Prince Devitt just played a banging national stadium in Dublin, apparently. So, and they also, thankfully, they've been rebuilding, and people like John Moxley actually helped prop them up. So, to your point about scouting and understanding how important indies are, he's someone who definitely gets it. So.
The one thing that I was going to say about this is what it signifies is, and I don't know if you've seen the roster age medium in both companies, is you need to invest in younger talent, right? You need to find younger talent. And so Dave and I were talking on Friday about who would mean the most as if they left one company for the other. I said Montez Ford number one, just because he's kind of in the news. Montez Ford is not a 22-year-old up and comer, right? He's been around for a little while. But a lot of the other wrestlers that we thought about were like older, like much older. And so because of the way star power works, and you kind of just continually get more famous as you get older and you're in people's lives more. As long as you can actually have wrestling matches, you're going to be able to be valuable to the companies. Like someone like AJ Styles, I had mentioned, with no Bryan Danielson, there is a space in AEW for an older wrestler with a name who came from the ROH, the TNA, Japan, who can just kind of fit in and have great matches on AEW shows. Like, there is now a space for that with Danielson not full time. And I think AJ would be better utilized in AEW than in WWE, but he may be thinking of his future, and maybe keeping that connection with WWE is better for him. Who knows? But it is the older talent who have been a little marginalized in their own company because they have been around for a long time, who would probably benefit the most. But that being said, if you bring in more young talent, and more young talent who's actually good, what is generally going to happen is it's going to age out the older talent. And thinking from a TKO perspective, do you want to pay a younger talent let's say $500,000 a year to basically hit the same return on, the same demographics or the same numbers as someone who you're paying $4.5 million a year to. This is how professional sports works. Now, in professional sports, your athleticism goes as you get older too, but you don't see 17-year vets in the NFL. You don't see 18-year vets in the NBA. There's like one or two in the leagues, and they're actually the unicorns. In WWE and now in AEW, I feel like everyone's 45. And so as that changes, I think if you're looking at it from a TKO perspective, it is to their benefit to age some of these folks out who are not The Rock or Cody or Roman. And, because there are people in that company who mean a whole hell of a lot. And then there are people that are in the middle that all kind of mean the same. We saw it with Baron Corbin. The Baron Corbins of the world.
Yeah.
If this thing works, the Baron Corbins of the world are going to just be replaced with younger people. And that's kind of how the ecosystem in pro sports works. So that's the other thing that I don't think, not that wrestling fans don't follow real sports, because a lot of wrestling fans do follow real sports, but that's how those ecosystems work. And that's what I see. If WWE ID and NXT is working properly, the Baron Corbins of the world get moved out much sooner than he just did.
I got a question for you both, actually. Is there a wrestler that comes to mind that hasn't worked that much in WWE or AEW under the age of 30 that you think would just do amazing if given a shot there?
Oh, this is a good question.
I have one, but I wanted to see if you guys had one.
How old is Ninja Mac?
I'll look it up for you.
There's a guy
I think
in
he's definitely
Noah.
under. I'd be surprised if he's over 30. He's 34.
Wow.
Oh, okay. What about Go Shiozaki? Because I think he's been wrestling in
42. He's been around.
Okay.
I was about to
know.
say, I think he's
Yeah,
way
he's a
older.
little older.
So the
Gosh,
guy I had.
No,
in mind-
you're not. See, Garrett's point is like just being made by us trying to guess these right now. Because
the guy that I had in mind was actually Kevin Knight.
Yeah, I was thinking about him
Oh,
too, but I was
that's
waiting
a
to see if
good
you were going to
one.
mention him.
He is 27 years old, and if he were be put in a prominent position right now in both WWE or AEW, he has all the tools to succeed. He has the look, the height, the ability, the physique, the talent. But there are only like 3 or 4 people that you can look at in the current wrestling landscape that have not had their shot in those 2 big promotions that is like money.
you know what? That's interesting because Sam interviewed him for the Ashe show that he did here,
I
or
love that guy.
there. So she's got articles on that, and I'll repost those too. But she had a great interview with him, and yeah,
Josiah has a great one in the chat.
yeah. What's
Michael
Oku? Yep. Oh,
He's gonna get a shot pretty soon, I think. So
It
we'll
seems
see.
like he's very closely aligned.
Yeah,
with
and
AEW.
Will Ospreay's obviously been, Rocky Romero have both been high on him anyway. So I mean, that's pretty big endorsements for.
You could kind of see the beginning of a Will Ospreay little group with maybe Michael
Agree.
Oku and Mark Davis and a couple of these other people that isn't quite United Empire, but is Will Ospreay centric, if that makes any sense.
That's essentially when we get to that part. That's essentially I've been suggesting that for a while now, is because having like a United Empire faction in AEW would not be the worst thing in the world, and it feels like you could pull it off.
And I guess to complete this exercise, like Stardom probably has many, many, many women who fit that, but are just better off being in Japan. But like if you're looking at just prospects for the sake of like great wrestling, like there's probably tons of women on that roster who fit the bill to come over to the US. But and that's another thing, which is the thing about New Japan right now is anybody who they get over who's got any sort of name is just ripe for the picking. And so they have to be careful. Now you get someone like Zack Sabre Jr., who it seems like he's not interested in being full-time in either company, and more power to him. He's great for them. And there hopefully will be more of him somewhere down the line. But that's the other thing is, the AEW, I was sort of joking with somebody about how this AEW New Japan relationship, it's kind of a one-way relationship at this point. And Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada being in AEW is great, but I don't know if I'd rather see them in AEW or New Japan. I would rather see them in New Japan, but that's, this is about them. This is not about me. This is about what they want. So that, seeing how that continues to develop is going to be something to keep an eye on too.
Natsupoi. I hear a lot about Natsupoi. So Suzuki, yeah, that's a good one.
The pipeline of Stardom talent, and even Anna Jay and Jack Perry going to Japan is something that AEW can do, that WWE cannot do to that extent. They did do the Noah arrangement with Tavion and the other guy from NXT, but that almost felt a little bit lesser than what the Stardom and the AEW New Japan relationship was with Jack Perry. Like Jack Perry was in the ecosystem. He was with House of Torture. He was through the paces and doing all these things, and he was training, and the prominence that he was featured in the presentation was just greater. And then when they both came back, I haven't seen the NXT performances of those guys. I imagine they got better, and that's fantastic. But I do think that AEW has done a better job of sending specific talent over to Japan and then seeing a marked improvement when they come back.
Now, here's a question that I have for you, Jeremy.
Yes.
A lot of what WWE does, it seems to be they go, they just get this kind of idea and they have so much money to throw at it. And then it becomes about, well, who says we can't do it? We can, of course, do this thing. We heard when Bryan Danielson was leaving WWE, one of his things was like, if he was to stay in WWE, it was like, yeah, I want to work with New Japan talent. I want to go to Japan. I want to go to all these different places. And, Vince McMahon, not really understanding what that meant, was probably just like, sure. And, Nick Khan had kind of thought about it and tried to figure it out. What if WWE went to New Japan and was like, we want in, but you cannot work with AEW. And here's going to be all of the benefits to working with us. And maybe there's money exchange, and maybe there's, high quality talent exchange. Like, you can have Nakamura for any show that you want. You can have X, Y, and Z. You can have, these different wrestlers for like, actually creating some sort of partnership rather than just taking all of their folks. What would it take in your mind for New Japan to tell AEW, bye-bye, we're working with WWE?
AEW has to do something so grievous to the relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling for that to be the case. They have their business relationship, the way that they foment their relationship with their business partners in Japan is incredibly important to them. And that loyalty, once it is created, is very, very hard to break. We had Harold Mage, who did not want to do any business.
I was going to bring that up. I'm glad you said something, because the fact is they might be in a better position today if that guy hadn't pwned it so bad with the AEW relationship.
There are so many what if factors that come into play. The
pandemic.
I
actually got to talk to Harold a couple times, by the way.
Yeah, I think I chatted with him for about 30 seconds on one of the San Jose shows when he was standing in the back watching the show.
I'm sure if I'm remembering correctly, Dave and I at least did an interview with him, maybe more than one. But whenever we'd go to those shows, like he would always want to talk to Dave. So I'm just there chatting with him. And I know that, ultimately he was a negative for them, but there were attempts made really in the US scene to like try and grow this thing. But then when AEW comes along, then, New Japan in the US means a little bit less. But I mean, I remember like the guy was not a dumb guy. I think
he made himself very accessible.
He just misread some things, and I think he took on what AEW was as more of a threat than anything else to what he wanted to do. And he made some bad mistakes after that, and then he was gone. So, but I always found him to be a pretty interesting guy, even though I think most wrestling fans today would see him in a negative light.
There were definitely a few people who wanted to say that he wanted to make himself a little bit too much of the conversation in New Japan Pro Wrestling, as opposed to just making the company run. He had a lot of opinions about the title belts that were not popular, and that we are still kind of seeing the fallout from today. But when you get back to it, AEW they would basically have had to, in bad faith, raided the New Japan locker room to get who they wanted, which they didn't do. These guys left of their own volition. Everything was done in a stand-up way, very respectful. Will and Okada and even Tama Tonga all got various levels of goodbyes this past year.
And then Kenny's going to be on the show tonight.
Yeah, that's what we were just about to talk about, and Jeremy was going to walk me through that.
Yeah, so it's like they are paying attention to the past and looking towards the future. Kenny being on these shows is good to make sure there are eyeballs on all the young guys, on Ryohei Oiwa and Yota Tsuji and Shota Umino. Like, who knows if Shota Umino is going to be a good guy or a bad guy in the next 3 months?
Well, and they have less guys like Okada. They have less guys like Okada.
They don't have anybody. They have Shingo,
wrestle.
and they have
so their ability to get better the way that they used to in New Japan, where you saw guys get better because they were wrestling the best wrestlers. Now those wrestlers are elsewhere, so it's like they don't have Will Ospreay to wrestle every day, or in like undercard, even in undercard matches, they don't have the reps with guys like on that level. So it does change the dynamic of New Japan a little bit, because I mean, Zach's awesome, and I know he's going to do a ton. I mean, look what he's done for Kosei Fujita. Like, that guy would not be as over if it wasn't for Zach, like paying attention to him and putting him in a position, like, whether we like him or not, like, however you feel about him. I mean, I'm a Fujita fan, but I just think, like, that's a lot of that is because Zach has, like, taken him under his wing and done what Will did with a lot of younger wrestlers, and what Okada, I mean, even Okada said that what Will Ospreay would be better than him at 30 if he kept wrestling the way that he was. So, I mean, and Okada's the best ever, so.
We are in a bridging scenario right now where we need another year for the young guys to cook, for them to win world titles, and forever, whoever is going to be the guy is going to win the world title the same night that Tanahashi retires. Like, you kind of have to, like, look at this in terms of, like, the closing of one era and the end of the other.
Okay,
Naito's washed. Okay, he's done. Like, the things that he can do, he can have, like, the big match at Wrestle Kingdom, but he can't carry the promotion every night. So you now have to count on Zack Sabre Jr. and you need to count on Kenny Omega to get you through these big events, to set up the storyline, to get people to watch, because your main eventers aren't main event ready yet. Like, they're just not there yet. They haven't had the matches. They haven't had the cachet. And the people watching just kind of know this. And we're trying to figure out who's going to be facing Zack Sabre Jr. at Wrestle Kingdom. I got my theories. A lot of people don't seem to like the theories of bringing in somebody from the outside, but there's nobody at the level to face Zack Sabre Jr. for the IWGP title right now. That's the reality of the situation. There's not going to be a guy unless there is some arrangement with WWE, or they grab one of the guys from AEW to put into that match and create some type of story about Zack being loyal and defending the banner for New Japan, while Hiromu and Naito do a co-main event grudge match, dream match that they've been talking about for 10 years. This is the kind of Wrestle Kingdom we're going to have because the young guys aren't ready. They just aren't.
You mentioned something that actually made me think, okay, we have the Tanahashi retirement tour coming.
Yes.
Now, I would actually watch this match, but and I'll tell you how I'll watch it. I'm going to get the ice packs out, and I'm going to put my knees in the ice packs. I'm going to lay out.
And you're going to
maybe have the heat thing over my shoulders and back as I watch this. But Naito and Tanahashi kind of have to have a match, right? As Tanahashi's on his way out.
Yes. I almost think that's San Jose. I would think that they would do that in San Jose.
You know, that's a good idea, actually.
I can't wear ice on my knees if I'm going to be there live.
We're on the second
there
level.
You go. You can go in garb.
You'll
be you'll have your ice pack and you'll have your heating pad.
Yeah.
You put a towel over because they love the towels. So.
And by the way, I'm not making fun of those guys.
No.
I'm basically saying that is how I feel as well. So I'm
oh no, I definitely when I see the knee thing
for those guys, I have empathy.
Huge.
So we're having Kenny Omega show up tonight. The show is going to be on at 10 p.m. tonight, Pacific time, 1 a.m. And it is going to be the finals of the best of the Super Junior Tag League. I always call it best of the Super Juniors. That's in May. That's the singles tournament. The Super Junior Tag League. And we're going to have Catch 2-2 versus TMDK, Robbie Eagles and Kosei Fujita for the opportunity, I presume, to face the Jet Setters at Wrestle Kingdom. Maybe earlier, but that's where we're at with that. And then we got Zack Sabre Jr. versus Shingo Takagi. We got Shota Umino versus Sonata. We have Taichi versus David Finlay. Doki versus Master Wato, who's coming back from an ACL tear. And it's just a great card. And then Kenny Omega is the icing on the cake. He's coming in. It's the first live appearance he'll have made since his diverticulitis diagnosis and subsequent injury recovery. He's been in Japan this whole time. So the implication is the Young Bucks have announced they're going to be at Wrestle Dynasty on January 5th. Kenny Omega has already done an interview video with Tanahashi talking about the Young Bucks and potentially wrestling them. I was not able to watch the press conference that Kenny Omega had this morning about his appearance tonight, but I would definitely consider some type of angle, although physicality, I'm not necessarily ready to think might happen tonight.
Okay, one question. I know I have to get out of here very shortly, but even though I have access to Jeremy text-wise and stuff, just listening to Jeremy talk about New Japan kind of gets me fired up.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know if people who are watching noticed this, but Jeremy was kind of staring into space and he's got the card memorized. Like he wasn't looking at notes. Like I have to go to Wikipedia to like preview all of that's how dialed in he is to the New Japan stuff. And I'm hopeful that he'll have some sort of write-up on the website tomorrow based on the Omega
I'm going to watch it live tonight. 10 p.m. isn't out of the question.
But don't you have to wait?
So much better for you guys. It's 10 p.m. I
can wake up. Like,
I don't work tomorrow. I don't have to be up, although I might end up waking up because my body hates me.
So, yeah, if you have thoughts on the Omega thing and you put them down on paper, shoot them over and we'll post it in the morning. This show, because everything is, we're just heading towards Wrestle Kingdom, and that's the big show in Wrestle Dynasty, and we'll see how that works this year. With
you gotta say it the right way. It's
what?
Wrestle Dynasty. That's how Sam and I say it. Okay.
That's gonna have real estate in my head.
She did it to me, and so now I'm passing it on to you guys. I can't undo it. That's what
wrestling. If you dynasty,
her and Nikki have always used. They always say dynasty because
I had to follow both of them because I couldn't, like, I would see Sam's tweets and then I would see Nikki's tweets sort of independently. It's like, you know what? I have to get the whole back and forth. I need to follow both of them.
They're hilarious.
Yeah. They are 1,000% a 1-2 punch. You can't.
They are they are like my gift sisters for life. I love them. It's amazing. Like they gift correctly. They do it. It's so much fun. But yeah, you do have to follow their entire conversation.
So what I was going to say is, I am excited to see what, once they mention Omega. And I know there are some people who are not super fired up for the idea of Wrestle Dynasty / Dynasty. Just because it's just more stuff to watch, right? And then you're kind of, how is AEW going to be presented and how is New Japan going to be presented? Like there's politics involved in this stuff. I am interested because the origin of AEW is on an episode of Being the Elite at the stroke of midnight, right? So there's always going to be that tie-in to Japan, and this is where Harold Mage also failed in what he was doing. But when we can get Kenny Omega in Japan, it just feels special. And this is kind of what I was saying about Ospreay and Okada in Japan. They feel regal in Japan, and they're a little bit normalized in the US. That doesn't mean that they're not big stars or they're not great wrestlers, but there's just a little bit of a regalness when they are there. And I feel the same way about Kenny. And, I took some time away from New Japan post G1, other than kind of keeping in contact with Jeremy. I don't know that I'll be able to stay up the whole time to watch that show tonight, but just the mere fact that Omega's going to be on it, it just feels more special to me, and even more special than if he was going to make his first comeback in an AEW ring, because I just know that he's going to be treated a little bit differently in Japan based on what he's done. So
it's in Osaka, right? Jeremy, it's in Osaka?
Yes. I don't remember.
Okay. I feel like it was, and I noticed that, and it's because that's like a great, like, apparently that town that province gets pretty crazy and they love that kind of stuff. So I feel like that's going to be a good place for him to come back.
Yes, it is in Osaka.
So it's because that crowd can get really fun. Those crowds can get really, really hot for stuff like this. So that could be it seems like it's a good, from what you just said, that sounds like a really good show. TMDK is totally our jam. So
I will make a prediction. I think by the time we wake up tomorrow, we're going to find out that the Fighting Spirit Unleashed show in Lowell, Massachusetts will have a main event of Zack Sabre Jr. versus Shota Umino for the title.
Huh.
It's good.
The three of them, Sonata, Shingo Takagi, and Shota Umino, were the ones that got wins over Zack Sabre Jr. in the G1. They all three confronted him when he won the title off of Naito. And it makes a lot of sense for Zack to get three big wins to certify himself as a strong champion before whatever title match that they have him booked for Wrestle Kingdom. It doesn't make sense to book out a Shota match 2 months now. It makes sense for Zack to say, no, I'll take you on in 2 days. Let's go. I'll wrestle you in 4 days. And if he beats Sonata, who, they've been doing that whole thing, that's what they do in New Japan. You'll have a special singles match at the beginning of the card. That guy comes out at the end of the night, says, hey, I want my title shot against you. They set it for that big show. I think that's what we're going to probably see on next Saturday night.
Well, I'm excited because I need to watch a good, fun show with those guys. And you know what? Shota needs that. Like, our Sheer needs that match. He
called out Moxley recently too, right? So they're already.
Oh, he called him his wrestling dad. That's awesome. We've been waiting for that match.
I don't agree with what he's doing.
Shota's turning. Shota's actually going to be turning.
He's playing with fire. I actually kind of like. I love it, and I've been loving it, and I know that it's been like a slow burn because I don't necessarily think that the Japanese crowd likes it the same way that we like it for some reason. I don't know. I can't tell. I haven't watched enough recently, but he's great. I love seeing him get big matches because I know that he can use them, and who doesn't want a showdown between him and his wrestling dad? They kind of have to clash.
They got to cut. They're good. They're going to come back around again. They did it before Dominion, but with the new changes and everybody's status, Shota doesn't seem like you can be on the side of Angels for too much longer. Garrett, do you got to get out of here, man?
Yes, he does.
I do have to get out of here.
He has important things to continue.
Family obligations. It's Sunday. You got to make sure
for sure.
Accounted for.
He's a busy dude.
Thanks for coming.
He's got like 1,000 wrestlings to watch.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
I finished
at that
everything-
WWE show last night. It was one of the ones where I was like, I understand why we do this show, but
You
it
could have
wasn't
shaved some time off
necessary.
of this one.
It wasn't a necessary show. Like
I can't.
we could have done
It was a really
all of those things
good
on
episode
television.
on Raw. It was a really good episode of Raw. Like the end of SmackDown a week and a half ago was the same level of what we were getting on that PLE. That last 30 minutes. It was the same level of important cadence.
Roman taking a pinfall is meaningful.
Mhm.
If they just hadn't screwed it up 3 minutes earlier with the botch run in and and the referee counting that is like JV stuff, man. For that program, that is some junior varsity BS. And it kind of it hurt it, I thought, a little bit, because from a heel perspective, having solo pin Roman with 2 spikes or whatever, that was like, oh, this means something. But then when we just saw the botch like 3 minutes earlier, then I was like, I wish they wouldn't have had the botch. It would have been so much better. And then Sammy coming out at the end and booting Roman on accident. Like, that whole thing was well done. But other than that, I don't think there's anything else necessary to watch on that show.
I would agree with that.
Unfortunately,
I mean, there's good matches. There's
you're into
good women's
WWE,
4-way, and
like,
then there was a good main event.
If you're a completionist, go watch the show. But anything that you absolutely need to see will be repeated ad nauseum on the Raw tomorrow and on SmackDown on Friday.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I bet you they won't even show the botch.
Oh no.
They'll edit it out.
They would rather us watch the highlights because
They'll edit it out in the replay. By the time if I were to go to Peacock and even be interested in that, it would be edited out anyway.
So Lady B made a comment about the giant belts.
Yep.
I was a little worried on Wrestling Observer Radio. Brian said these have to be the most expensive belts ever created, and I got a shiver because I was like, oh no, Tony Khan's gonna want to.
Oh no, don't put that in the universe.
Tony Khan is the belt guy.
He's probably angry that they now have rings that they can potentially.
Oh yeah, because
match.
of MJF's ring. But
Yes.
you know, the MJF's ring got pawned, so it can't be that important.
Liv Morgan's going to be using that ring all the time in her match.
Okay, so the belt, as gaudy as it is, like supposedly Tony's just got like tens of belts sitting in his house, just waiting to be used. But now it gives him an opportunity to create an even gaudier belt and create an even gaudier championship. I don't know how he's going to do it.
I don't appreciate that you put that out in the universe.
I was thinking about Tony Khan.
That was highly unnecessary.
Almost like the end of Iron Man 3 when Iron Man calls all his different Iron Man suits down. Tony Khan is just invoking all of his title belts in his moment of triumph.
Yeah.
You just like put
armor of title belts.
You could like make them into what am I looking for the word I'm missing, but he could make like a whole like mosaic essentially out of them, all the belts he has into one enormous belt. That has to be like carried out by special attendants.
So I will end my stay here and just say that I just finished my ballot, and I'm not talking about my Wrestling Observer ballot. I still have to do that one, but I did fill out my ballot, sending it out today. Everybody, let's go old school. Let's go MTV. Everybody get out there and rock the vote, man.
Rock the vote.
You have a couple days left. All right.
I sent mine off. We made a dog walk trip out of dropping off.
There you go. All right. Take it easy, y'all.
Take care,
Thank you, Garrett. Like, oh, did I not remove him? Oh,
there we go.
No, you do it. No, you do it.
Get him out of here.
Oh, it's so funny when we all have admin access, isn't it? So, but anyway,
all right. So a little bit more about the NJPW stuff.
Yeah, we should talk to our people, and we do appreciate your comments. And hello, everyone. Thank you for being here and joining in. So, yes.
All right. In fact, Tony Khan allows NJPW to have Kenny's first appearance with a short hiatus. It's nuts. NJPW is lucky. what the hell else are they going to do with Kenny Omega on that show right now? Like,
I think that's the right start. I think they'll
you
take good
bring
care
him in,
of
he's gonna
him.
get fed to Moxley in the Blackpool Combat Club. The Young
You
Bucks
don't
just
want to bring,
took
yeah,
off.
you don't want to bring him back too early. I feel like this seems to make, I don't know, when I heard that, it almost made all the sense in the world to me. I mean, they are lucky, but it made more sense. Like, let him get some reps in with this.
Have a plan. The whole thing about AEW right now is that I feel like for the first time in a while, there is a sustained direction among the stories and the talent between each pay-per-view. And I do the pay-per-view recaps with Kevin Ely every week for this network, talking about the pay-per-views, but we don't talk about the shows from week to week. So when we're coming back, we basically have not talked to each other for a month, and we're just picking up where we left off. And the whiplash that we can have from what has happened from 1 month to the next is like, I don't even fucking understand. How is somebody who is checking in, and because you know that there are a ton of people that are not watching the weekly AEW programming.
Of course. I'm struggling to watch. I watch Rampage DVR'd most of the time. Or I'm not going to lie. I've read mostly recaps on Rampage. Yeah. Or I just let Dave and Brian spoil it for me if I'm
So you don't inclined. Have the through line, right? Like you don't have this easy to digestible from point A to point B. Yeah. You are given fun matches. You are given compelling reasons to watch from time to time. But the through line feels like there are breaks in trying to follow the tracks. You know, like the breadcrumbs kind of miss a gap here or there. And that has everything to do with Tony Khan just not being as good at his job as we all want him to be. We want him to be the amazing booker. We want him to not make these mistakes. We want him to listen to the right people at the right time about who to push, who is going to be made sure to win the match at the pay-per-view. All of these things that he's got backseat critics and pressures and advertisers and trying to make TV deals. His TV deal's done. It's over. He's safe for 3 years. Now is the time to focus on creating a product in which the loyalty from your viewers is being rewarded because they feel like their time is not being wasted.
But he's distracted by ROH, though.
I hope so. I hope that he's not. I hope that he realizes that, like, once he gets that
or
ROH
I guess I should reverse that and phrase it as if in the form of a question, which is this because him trying to make the ROH deal a TV deal distracting from that?
I don't know. I know that
it seems cohesive right now, and I feel like Moxley has just done what he always does. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I believe Moxley to be the ace of AEW. Okay. I feel like he's grabbing the company and doing the thing that he's doing, and I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, okay, let's build something around that."
Moxley has enough vision and experience that he is able to drive a direction for the company that other people have also tried. With MJF, for example, his direction for the company was not something that I truly like. When MJF is the focus of the promotion does not feel like it's attractive to me as a whole. It's not to say that MJF is bad or is not a good main eventer. It's just there is a certain amount of MJF exposure that I find to be sufficient, and he was severely overexposed for the last 2 years.
We here Powerbombshells tend to agree with that. Who are the right people to listen to?
Whatever is consistent. I have this belief that he was listening to Jimmy Jacobs and a number of other people, and he had 23 people in the room telling him what he should be doing, including the wrestlers who have their own self-interest about who should win, who's going to wrestle who. You know, I mean, there were some reports out there that a lot of people wouldn't work with Swerve Strickland until just trying to get a chance. Swerve wasn't getting the opportunities. And, there were people that said, you know what, I'll work with you. And both people benefited from those situations when they're doing it. Like, there are people that are out for themselves and there are people that are out for the company. And the people that are out for the company and trying to make it grow, like Swerve and say Jay White and Will Ospreay, and it feels like Callis is invested with the proto
he does
star.
feel
It's like
pretty. I don't know. I feel like Orange Cassidy is pretty invested
Yes.
in. I mean, because
Yes.
he's not wrong when he said that he wouldn't exist without AEW. Like he would not be able to have done what he's done in a different place.
We are actively working in this situation where we are finding the people who are dedicated to making AEW the best place it can be. There are times where I think Christian is great, you know, but there are also times where I think, man, it really seems like Christian is really just kind of focused on making sure Christian gets what Christian needs.
Well, and this is the Jericho problem.
Yeah. And so.
And now he has the ROH belt, which, again, a lot of people are saying it's because of the TV title, and that's, or the TV.
Like they're trying to
get it, and that's fine. And money talks, and people, like the people that are running networks and stuff still do look at that. I mean, even though that seems old to us, it doesn't necessarily seem old to a 50 or 60-year-old TV executive. So
yeah,
it's hard to say who's.
It's like they had 3 years ago and change. They brought a ton of guys over into AEW that were dropped by WWE. And to various levels of success have we had with those guys. I think far and away, Swerve was the most success, was the one that thrived the most of all the people that came by. A lot of people want to say that, you know, Malachi Black really did. I don't really think he did. I think he just kind of, he's there. He has a wrestling career.
He
doesn't want to lose to anybody in a singles match, and that makes things difficult. Miro, there and gone. Keith Lee, he might still be there. I don't know. I haven't seen him in a year.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with him.
Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, they've been fine. You know, it's like maybe disappointing for Adam Cole. Just the setback that he had just make you feel like his potential hasn't been reached. There's a very small sample size of people that have done very, very well from WWE. And Swerve's at the top of that list. And he had to work very, very hard to get to that point. And he had to prove to a lot of people that he was worthy of that, of shouldering that responsibility. And I think he did. So.
Agreed. No, he's definitely elevated his game. So, but.
Ricky Starks, he's definitely headed to WWE. Miro, you know, he's kind of got some stuff going on with his personal life. And so I don't want to comment too much on Miro because I want to be respectful of what things he's potentially dealing with.
Yeah, we don't really
home to Bulgaria, and so if that kind of decision is being made, I think there's probably some sensitivity as to what you are working towards, and I wish you nothing but the best.
I mean, the problem, and you talked about lived experience. We don't know what's going on in people's really real lives. So, I mean,
but he belonged to WWE. Miro,
he is just kind of their standard, like cardboard cutout. That is the guy that for them. Whereas, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see the point of. So let's talk about real quick here. Well, actually, let's switch the Orange Cassidy thing just because we're talking about him.
Sure.
And I'll switch to that, and then we'll do the 2 tag team things. But so Orange Cassidy versus Moxley was confirmed for Full Gear. What do you think? Do you think that this is like a short-lived John Moxley thing, and that Orange Cassidy is its time, or do you think that this is building to something that is else?
I'm going to really bum out some Orange Cassidy fans here. And I think he is just a stepping stone to cement the dominance of John Moxley. I think we are in for a significant John Moxley run. I think that you can elevate someone from the upper mid card like Darby or Orange Cassidy to beat John Moxley. But if this is going to be the guy for, say, like the next 6 months, sure feels like a Will Ospreay kind of victory, like a big main event. Like this guy has vanquished all the people up to this point. This doesn't feel like the guy nobody, the Mick Foley kind of thing. You know, like Darby is more Mick Foley than he is Sting in a way. Like, he's not Sting. Like, they're going to get him to be Sting at some point. But right now, he's the guy that takes an unbelievable beating and gets up until he just can't get up anymore. That's Darby. And that sounds way more like Mick Foley than Sting to me, personally. Now, you can get there at that point. But if you're going to tell me that the end goal now is Darby being the world champion at 6 months, you have a lot of work ahead of you. And I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't see that at all. I mean, to me, and I've said this to Sam before, is that Darby is great. And I think that there is potential for Darby to be the guy down the road. But I do not believe that he is the person that should be the guy right now. I don't necessarily think that. I mean, I think this could be I think it'll be an awesome match because both these guys can really wrestle. I don't see Mox giving up the belt either anytime soon, but I could see a potential feud. And John Moxley is making me believe that Orange Cassidy could potentially be the guy sometime. And
Moxley is doing a great job to convince people that the person has a chance of winning, right? But he's really, honestly, I didn't see it until Mox started pulling what he's been pulling lately. And then I went, wait a minute. Orange Cassidy really could. I don't know if this is the moment, but he really could get to a place where that would be great. There's something that you have to pay attention to when they are telling you a story about the main event or about a title or a feud. Now, the Cassidy and Moxley feud doesn't feel about the title. It feels about the future of AEW or the state of AEW right now. Now, all of that is a battle that can be battled without the title being the main focus. And that should never be the case. You know, it's like he's fighting for the title because they somehow believe that having that title will make you the most dominant force regardless. Nothing about Orange Cassidy winning the title is going to stop John Moxley from beating the shit out of him after the match or the Dynamite. It's all about protecting the AEW. And if Cassidy loses that match but gave everything in his power to protect AEW to his last dying breath, that's the finish that you're going for because you're showing that Cassidy is bleeding for AEW, but it just wasn't enough. And who's going to be the guy to stop Moxley? You know, and you're going to have a series of those. It's very much like the Roman Reigns, you know, having that 2 years on top, but it's just not going to last that long. You're going to run through these guys until you are finally ready to make the guy who is going to be the guy for AEW for the next 2 years. Like, whoever that is, whoever your main babyface is, that's the guy to beat John Moxley. You don't do this angle unless you're really going to make the guy for the future. And whoever that is,
it probably should be something like Will Ospreay when you think about like the amount of money that we're talking about. I mean, Okada and Okada and Ospreay, I mean, they're great and everything, but they're not using them as much as they can, right?
It's the 6 month thing that just has turned over. Like, they hold off on really going full bore on their talents until like 6 months after they're, you know, in there.
Like Takeshita came back hot from the G1, and then it was like,
Ospreay and Okada were slightly different because they were both given belts, right? But I expect Okada to not have that belt by the end of the year.
Yeah.
You know, after the C2 is over, I kind of think somebody's going to beat him for it. Ospreay's already dropped the international title. It's time to get them higher up that card.
In the picture.
Okada shouldn't have a title when he wrestles Omega, when Omega comes back. There should be no title on the line unless it's the IWGP title or not the AEW title.
Although,
you know what I'm saying? Like, there's no title that is worthy of those two wrestling each other.
No. Yeah, you can't have some silly belt involved in that next match unless it's. I mean, you might be right. The IWGP or the AEW championships; those are the only two belts that would be worth that match. So,
and the other aspect is, it's like, okay, So Moxley has this title, right? If he drops it in a month or 2 months or 3 months, and then you have a baby face, you know deep in the back of your mind, Ospreay's coming for that title.
Yeah.
Or maybe like Christian could get that title in some way, shape, or form. He is a heel holding on to a title contract with a heel guy
that's right.
holding
He
the
still
belt.
has that thing.
So what you're at is, do you have this one guy hold it for a while, or are you going to hot potato this thing 2 or 3 times going into somebody holding it with some legitimacy going into your big summertime pay-per-views? Like, what is the most important like direction, or what's the priority? Stabilization of the title or the hot angle with a payoff? Could it be both? Can both things be true? That's the kind of where I'm going with this. And it just feels like the more I think about it, the more it just makes sense that Moxley should just hold on to that title for a very long time.
I tend to agree with that. The match is going to rock, but I tend to agree with that.
Orange Cassidy is not our main eventer guy yet. He can be at one day.
No.
But
even he's a really good wrestler, and he can continue to work very well.
Orange Cassidy has a character. He has a persona.
Yeah.
And he has a role on the AEW.
Yeah.
When he did that promo about taking things seriously and doing the things that he doesn't feel comfortable doing, that wasn't the promo that you're going to want to see from Orange Cassidy every week from here on out. Where he's the serious guy. And if he has that AEW title and he puts it in a backpack, it's also not going to feel right. They did not approach it to me in a way where I felt like I'm going to be seeing this guy legitimately, and I believe it, as the world champion with the presentation that he has. As an upper main eventer, fighting for it at Full Gear, 100%. Do I believe that he's going to win it? Not really at all.
Now that you make the point about the backpack, I totally that's not the direction you want for the AEW title right now.
You don't want your AEW title in a backpack. It's already in a briefcase, and it's being treated as a heel maneuver to have it locked away in a briefcase.
Yeah.
So you're just going to have another guy have it in a backpack?
Yeah, we can't have that. I'm gonna downvote that one. So,
all right.
So Mark Davis. Go ahead.
I think, just hit on some of these comments.
Oh yeah, comments. Let's do comments.
Brad, Darby is going to get the Hogan Sting story, but an actual title win. Let's do it. Let's see it. I want to see how they work that out, because I want to give AEW every opportunity to do a story that I may not believe can work, but I'm willing to give it a shot. You know what I mean? Like the Rey Mysterio done right. When he won the world title, and then everyone wanted to prove that he wasn't going to be a good world champion, so he was booked that way. If Darby wins it, like, he needs to be booked as a strong champion.
Yeah.
Whether the greater AEW audience buys into it is going to be the real challenge. I think it's possible, but I'm not calling an outright guarantee. What do you think?
I struggle with Darby. I don't think that he's out of the question, and I do believe that he could be the one. I'm still not there with him. I mean, he's further away than someone like Orange Cassidy to me, because that's a big step, but he might want it way more than I think. And like you said, I mean, Gato used to do that all the time, where I was like, that'll never work. And then I'm like, okay, forget it. I'm silly. Gato knows exactly what he's doing, and I'll just be quiet. And I love that. So, I mean, maybe Tony Khan has like a real plan here, and the guys that are helping him will. But maybe he will get it, but like, who's he going to get it against?
I wonder if there's a thematic flaw thing going on here with all the guys that came out after the end of the match with Danielson. So you got Darby, and Darby, the knock is he'll take off and he'll leave, and he's not fully invested. So that's the knock there. But you can use that in the story, right? And so you have OC, and the knock is he's not serious enough. And they each have something that they have a flaw that they already acknowledge, but they are going to try and work past it to beat the final boss. But each one of them Like, it's just something that the final boss uses against them in some way, shape, or form. And you can do that with a number of different people. You had Adam Cole, you had Daniel Garcia. Those are all people that you can put in a world title shot. People will chomp at the bit to have Daniel Garcia in the world title. People will also say when it happens, like, why is Daniel Garcia in a world title shot?
Well, of course, but
all these things, like, but you have to do it at some point. You have to put these guys in these positions for the optics to believe that they can actually win it one day. Daniel Garcia wins the world title on the first time because he's never had a shot in 3 years. Everyone's gonna be like, what the fuck is this? Like, why? So you're gonna have to have a scenario where he's good, but he's not good enough. And if you fit in like a thematic thing where all 4 of these guys have something, Adam Cole's too fragile kind of thing. But then the guy comes along who is fully committed, isn't fragile, takes things seriously, has all the things, and each one of them had a gap in their game. And then you find the guy to beat Moxley. That might be the story they're trying to tell.
Well, maybe to that, maybe they're going to, like, maybe they're exactly doing that. Maybe they're like, here you go, guys, step up.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what you have to go from upper mid card to the main event. And when you do that and you do the world title quest. And I firmly believe that Will Ospreay has never had the babyface world title quest on a major stage. Like when he won it in the IWGP, it was a heel.
Yeah,
it was a heel title, and then he gave it up because of the pressures of the pandemic and all that stuff. And he never held a world title ever since. So when he wins that world title in AEW, and he will win that world title, I promise you, it is going to be the big babyface, unbelievable celebration. It will put Bryan Danielson's world title win to shame. Promise.
Yeah, I can't argue with that
Huge.
because it's going to be ginormous. He's so great. And that was like with Mark Davis coming back, and Sam and I have been wondering for weeks, because Kyle Fletcher's been like, we can be tag team partners and we can do all this stuff. And he said, what do we got here? I think OC was on a break for a while before his feud with Moxley. He would have been hotter.
Maybe. I mean, he is about at the same level he's always been.
Yeah,
if he had been gone for a while and rehabilitating, you would have had to bring him in a really hot scenario in order to make it happen. But it's not impossible. You know, if you had that shock show up of a casino gauntlet match and then he gets a title shot that way, that could have been fun. Brad says the most intriguing Mox has been in a long time. This is the best he's been since that Mox Shingo match in San Jose for New Japan back in January.
Great.
He has not been the same wrestler the entire year. That's including the IWGP title matches and everything like that. He is at the top of his game right now.
Yeah, he's crushing it. I'm so he's back in that form. Christian, Kaz, and Tiff are all waiting in the wings.
Those are all title briefcase people in the
that's true.
Tiffany's got the Money in the Bank. Kaz has one on Impact, and he's been fucking with Joe Hendry based off of what I could tell from Mike Gilbert and JD.
Yeah, they didn't belt. Apparently, they didn't belt Joe Hendry last week
So they don't believe in Joe Hendry. Good to know.
Good to know. Right. That was here locally, as a matter of fact.
And then we got one from Lady B right here. As someone who only been watching AEW regularly for a year, I was very surprised to find out OC and Darby had never been world champion before, just based on how popular they are with the fan base. Their day will come, but it just does not seem like, with the way that they positioned and the prioritizing of them on the totem pole. I mean, they took the title shot away from Darby. He had a title shot, and they booked his ass out of the title shot.
Yeah, you're right. No, they totally did. It was like, wait a minute. And I think a lot of that too is that from the beginning, they were. I mean, those guys were brought in because they were the guys that were not going to be WWE wrestlers or wrestlers anywhere on TV that existed at that time. So that was their draw. And I think that still makes them popular regardless of where they are on the card right now. they're gonna stay popular. I mean, anytime I've been to an event, I've seen kids dressed as Orange Cassidy, and I mean, that's
100%.
and I love that, and that's the way it should be. But they're not quite. I feel like they can do it. I'm not there with them. I'm like, they're not ready yet. When I look at those two, I just don't. They're not ready yet.
This is how I look at it, right? There are wrestlers that when they wrestle a match, I think they should win this match. And that's the Will Ospreays, the Okadas, the Kenny Omegas, Moxley. Like, they're in there. There's absolutely no reason why, like, that they should be losing a match on TV.
Yep.
Darby and Orange Cassidy and guys like Adam Cole, they are in a situation of, like, they can lose matches. It should make sense. It should be, something that leads to something bigger down the line. But I don't go into an Orange Cassidy match or an Adam Cole match or a Darby match and think they are automatically going to win this match. And that is the difference between a main eventer and an upper mid-carder.
Yeah. I mean,
that's how I look at it. In terms
no,
of
I can't. I mean,
what
I mean, that kind of jives with how I feel about it.
So just it's how I feel about whether or not they're going to win going into every match. Like, if MJF loses 2 matches on TV at most a year. So anyone who is at that level, like, Swerve should not be losing a TV match. Hangman, more than likely, won't be losing TV matches in his career going forward, unless it's to one of the top guys. But, he's
Unless
still
it's necessary,
upper.
yeah.
Yes. It's like, but you look at Jay White, you're not necessarily sure he's going to, like, you know what I mean? Like, there are guys, and then you just...
Jay White would be so great. I wish that they would just use him more. And I mean, they're starting to right now, but he's hard. I mean, he won't go away because of the kind of wrestler he is, which is nice, but he's great. I love me some Jay White.
So that's where I'm at on it. But I am looking forward to Full Gear. I'm looking forward to Survivor Series. I'm looking forward to Power Struggle. Some of the TV for AEW and WWE has been, I'm going to not quite get on this right away. There's just so much of it. And, prioritizing. I got through everything this weekend before I came on the show because who knows what we were going to be talking about.
Good job, because I did not get through Collision last
night. Collision, I guess.
I do want to watch that the Commander match. Sounds like it was awesome, though.
The Commander match was a lot of fun with Kyle Fletcher, but I think the last topic that we should talk about today is in honor of Sam.
Yes.
The Private Party Tag Team title.
And that's why I put them on the picture, because she's been banging this drum for, it's got to be like a year now.
Mm-hmm.
She's been saying the whole time. I mean, she should have got an extra flower from that celebration. I did hear that they had an actual real celebration for them, which I know she will appreciate also.
I was ready to talk about all of it because I watched the Collision. I saw the whole thing.
Tell me.
And I have opinions. Okay.
Tell me your opinions. You're not going to spoil anything for me.
No. I was just kind of prepping because I'm trying to wrap them all together in my head real quick. Okay, here we go. They should have won the titles on the pay-per-view.
That is true. I mean,
I get the storyline reasons and the raising of the stakes and potentially splitting up the tag team, and it was a good match. It was fun. I was happy for Private Party to win the titles on the TV show. Did I feel like it was the most amazing title win? And oh my God, after 5 years, like they did it. They blew me away. No, I did not. I felt like there was a lot of it that was the Young Bucks making them look amazing. And good for them. Like, they still look great. Just like somebody made them look great, but they still had to do the work themselves to get to that point. They were set up at the plate to swing, and they hit the home run. Good for them. Now, my thought was, okay, how are you going to follow up with this? How are you going to make me feel about Private Party as the tag team champions after they won on Dynamite? I had no idea what was going to happen on Collision. And to my surprise, the show opened with probably 24 other wrestlers trying to get to the ring behind private party like barricades, with a number of wrestlers in the ring ready to celebrate them as they come down to their music, doing their dance, being able to, you know, cut the promo and talk about, hey, we did it, Philly, we did it. It was a good promo. It was not.
Awesome.
It was not a great promo. It felt like they were trying to talk to the people that were there, which was like 2,000, rather than communicate to me at home, which was significantly more. And as a result of that, it felt slightly indie that their promo was cutting. Like it was not quite ready for prime time. But I hope that they are given an opportunity from this point to grow. Because what they did was try and set up as many title situations contenders for them, because they're going to have a title contender series.
Ooh.
In which 3 other teams are going to face them at Full Gear. I believe it is FTR versus the House of Black. I believe it is the Acclaimed versus Los Ingobernables de the Roosh Group. I was about to say the La Faction Ingobernables. And then the Outrunners are going to be facing someone as well. So you have a three matches, and the winners of each one are going to face off against Private Party. I was doing this one off of memory, but I can't remember exactly.
That's pretty good.
Right.
That explains why Sam was unhappy a little bit, because I know she wants FTR as far away from the titles as possible, and I'm just going to say that on her behalf, because I think that I would be remiss to not say it, because I know that's what she's thinking. I saw her tweet this morning.
I think that they can be in the match and make Private Party look good, and Private Party can win the match against the Outrunners or one of the lesser teams. It's putting them in the ring together and surviving and showing that you beat FTR in some way, shape, or form. They have a lot of work.
More meaning I know it doesn't have as much meaning to Sam and Nikki as it does to some other people, and I do understand the storyline thing, and I'm sure she does too. But
they have a lot of work ahead of them to get AEW, and Tony Khan in particular have a lot of work ahead of them to get Private Party the cachet that everyone would believe that they are as good of champions as the Young Bucks or some of the other tag team champions that have held the division. There are some good, viable tag teams in AEW right now, and they need for it to grow. I don't know how long Private Party will have those titles. I don't think it'll be very long, but I could be surprised. You know, Brian Cage and Lance Archer could definitely get those titles off of them in like 2 months if they wanted to. Or Private Party could hold them until Double or Nothing. The tag team division is not so crucial that you can't just hot potato those titles when you just need to pop the crowd with the title change.
No, but that's that's been one of our major complaints, is that you're built. I mean, the Young Bucks built this company. You used to have these. You had one of the greatest tag team matches of all time on your on one of your pay-per-views. So bringing back the tag division, using Private Party to build the tag team division back up, seems like a really, really good idea.
Yes.
The Outrunners, they're not I love their gimmick, and they need a few more reps, but I think that they are viable. I wish they would use the infantry more. I think that that's something that they could really capitalize on.
They brought in grizzled young veterans.
Oh,
and
that's
then
right.
immediately
And then
had them lose
to
the Outrunners in a match. I'm like, why did you have these two face each other? You did not have to have these two face each other in a match on Collision and kneecap one of them. That was my issue with, you did not need to bring in grizzled young vets if you were going to have them lose to the homegrown team that you were surprised has gotten over so well. That seemed like a mistake. And so
I probably would have booked that a little differently, because
BYV
should be getting over another. Why not use them to get over another Top Flight, or I don't know. I'm just throwing kind of names at the wall, but or even just to build the Cage Archer match. You could do that with them instead of GYV is a big deal. I mean,
tag team wrestling is a big deal. You have every opportunity to invest in a division that other people are not investing in.
Yep.
New Japan Pro Wrestling does not have a whole lot of great tag teams. You have like 3 or 4, and you keep the titles on the same people for the majority of the year. WWE is has 2 different versions of tag titles for the men and 1 for the women, but they don't ever end up on the PLE. They're always on the SmackDown or the Raws leading up to it, as like the way that they want to make sure that they have people following for these title matches. Tag team wrestling has a purpose. Tag team wrestling has an audience. However much you choose to invest in tag team wrestling has everything to do with putting them on TV for a considerable amount of time consistently and conditioning your audience to treat it as it's important. If you stop and start with the tag team division and go like the Young Bucks, where they have a tag team title match once every 6 weeks on TV and they're not around at any other point, you don't have a tag team division.
Yeah, I agree with that so hard. I hope that they are I hope the reason that they did this was very specifically to start building their tag team division back up to being what it was in the beginning, which I'm one of the people. I love good tag team wrestling. We are constantly sort of like bemoaning the fact that like the best ones are behind the paywall and they never show up on the TV, and the same ones are showing up on the TV over and over. I don't know. I'm hoping this is good. Like, I think that the private party thing it's different. It's fresher than like you could have given it back to FTR, and I don't think that it would have been exciting, but I don't think it would have been as interesting or like the potential. Whereas this has some potential to go somewhere. These guys are really gonna have to work it. They're gonna have to work hard.
I think
being moved
we
to
may
ROH,
get Grizzled
Brad?
Young Vets facing the Mighty Don't Kneel. I want to say that they have a match coming up, but if they don't, they will very soon. But Grizzled Young Vets are definitely getting more play in New Japan right now. And if Brad is saying, I don't watch Ring of Honor, I just don't have time. So he's saying that they're being moved over there. And I think the Ring of Honor tag champs, Venkin, are Sammy Guevara and Dustin Rhodes. I think
I wish to see that's Sam's wheelhouse. Unfortunately, that's not mine. She's one of the 12 people watching right now. So,
oh, hello.
Shout out.
All right, what else we got?
Anybody else? I think that's
anybody
good.
got any last comments before we wrap this up? We went good 3 hours. I'm feeling pretty good about that.
See, we did perfect. We went way long. We had a fun honor. We had 2 honorary broadcasts.
Told you didn't have to hold my hand on this thing. We can talk for 3 hours.
That's right. I know. It was fun though. We appreciate him. But yeah, I appreciate you a lot, and I really do. I mean, Garrett was talking about how dialed in Jeremy is. Jeremy and Steven do Speaking of Strong Style on Thursday on this very network right here that you can subscribe to, and I like watching you guys to get caught up with it because I know you know what I need to know, and it's the business aspect, like Garrett was saying, these things, you have like familiarity with like how the business functions better, and so it kind of it helps build the story better. So I mean, that's one of our one of our like flagship shows because it's all about New Japan, and anything you need or want to know about New Japan, like you guys are there to kind of listen. And
people fucking hate it when I say it like this, but we just try to add some music between the notes.
Well, I mean, and that's you keep your humility, keep your wonderfulness, because we all love it, and that's why
humility. What?
I'm sorry.
Modesty is my best quality. Are you kidding me?
Huh, I'm the most modest person there is. I'm more modest than you would ever actually. I am
just trying to take the piss. I don't take compliments well.
Cute.
I appreciate all the amazing things that you have said about me, and if I have not made it clear, I think what you and Sam do on the Powerbombshells is brave. I think that you speak about things that people don't want to speak about, that people are willing to give you a very tough time about talking about, and it does not stop you and it does not deter you. And I think that there's a lot of admiration that can be had by following that example.
Oh, thank you. It's so nice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to end on that because there's just nothing that can be said beyond that.
Shut it down.
Except for me thanking everyone for joining us and thanking Jeremy and Garrett for being honorary broads this week. And Sam, when she's ready, we'll be back. And if she's not back next week, we'll find ourselves another honorary broad.
Figure it out. That's what
our
we do.
honorary broads always come to play, and that's why we love them so much. And that's it. That's it from here. And you guys have a great week, and we will talk to you next week at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Bye.